Alright, most of these recordings here are since 10 o'clock this morning. Actually, I think all of them are since 10 o'clock this morning. I might be wrong about the first couple, I don't know for certain. It's hot off the press. I was busy for the last hour trying to get this thing working because we stopped right around 5 o'clock. Or this conversation with Kylee stopped right around 5 o'clock. And over here, it says it's 6:09. I've already got the recording up, and I'm pressing play right after I press the call button to get a hold of Kylee. Let's tell the quick backstory of Kylee. So Kylee is an investigator who I wasn't sure if I'd spoken to or not. I didn't recognize the name. But the investigator that I was told to send this evidence to before I was arrested, her name was Kylee. In court, John Holland pretended that I threatened Kylee's life. And he's not the only one. Nearly all of them, as well as the deputies in the jail, when I tried to turn stuff in or tried to tell the situation, they would automatically interrupt me and tell me that I threatened Kylee's life. Now, in this, Kylee admits today that I did not threaten her life. She did not see any threats against her life. None. Matter of fact, it's a goddamn landline. So all of those messages that I sent to the number that they gave me and told me to send this stuff to it, well, this is Kylee, and she is their investigator. John Holland did claim that she was a peer support worker in court, or one of their crisis workers, claiming that I threatened one of their crisis workers. It's also in this paper that I have. This one right here is in specific with Tammy Waddell, and they want to call it supposed abuse in jail. Now, there's requests by the jail and requests by all sorts of people, but the requests that they needed to do were requests for goddamn evidence. So we're going to press play on this, and you're going to get to listen to how basically John Holland and the sheriff's department and the police department abused this situation. How they used people at TFCC and used Kylee in specific as their linchpin to play victim, and she outright stated that she was told by people to do certain things. And we're going to hear her own words on that. How they try to play it off. Well, I paused for just a second, and as soon as I paused it, I got to hear some glass breaking. So that's one of those situations where if you're not recording 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you don't get to record it, and then people get to pretend that it's a delusion and it didn't happen. We're also getting to see the excuses. Well, you get to see how they use the mentally ill thing to deny me my rights as a human being, but then they won't give me the rights of a mentally ill person because I'm intelligent, because I'm not retarded. That's not okay. The law says disabled, not retarded. So let's press play on this. The backstory, I'll probably interrupt throughout it to tell that anyway, so we'll stop telling the backstory and we'll just press play. Besides, I've told the backstory many times.
Thank you for calling Tillamook Family Counseling Center. If you are having an emergency and need immediate assistance, please hang up and dial 911 now. For all other calls, please listen to the following options. Press 1 for the color code. Oprima 2 para escuchar este mensaje en español. Press 3 to leave a message in the general mailbox. Press 4 if you know your party's extension. Press 5 for our staff directory. Press 0 for the next available receptionist.
0.
Please hold for the next available staff member.
You need you to move your butt so that I can move my seat so that I can pet you. Hello?
Hi.
Is there any way that you could speak up? I have the volume all the way up on my phone, and I have it on speakerphone, and I can barely hear you.
Yes, I can do that.
Tripper! Sorry, I was just calling a dog so I can pet it. So I have a friend who's helping me to do this stuff because I'm disabled. My name is Sean Schwartz. I have Claire Jordan on the phone to assist me with this because I'm disabled, and I am recording it.
Okay.
So I have had previous issues with Tillamook Family Counseling Center, and I need to turn in crimes that were committed by people at the Tillamook Family Counseling Center to take advantage of myself as a disabled person. There's a lot of people who are involved, and I do have the evidence from TFCC's paperwork that they sent to my public defender. Over half of the stuff that they should have sent is not in there. They continue to...
I'm going to pause here because during this, I wasn't sure if I'd ever spoken with Kylee before. The reason that I didn't know if I'd ever spoken with Kylee before is because when I was first sent to them, I didn't know everybody's names. I had to try to learn them. And a lot of these people, you know, I only knew them on sight. I didn't know what their names were. If they'd have had dogs, I'd have remembered their dogs' names. But that's, I guess, not important. So I guess we'll press play. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent.
Pretend that I'm delusional and schizophrenic, despite the fact that I have, number one, Claire Jordan on the phone, who has been able to verify that the things I told them are not delusions. They're absolutely true. And also, I guess I could let her explain part of the situation.
Okay, so Sean is a disabled adult, and he has been through a lot of things, and we're not going to get into that right now, but he's had mandatory reporters and healthcare providers not provide him with the information and the assistance that he needed.
Still need.
One thing in specific is the people at TFCC were trying to claim that I was delusional for saying that people were harming me over my friend Natalie being killed in Colorado. And Claire can verify, she's actually in Colorado, she can verify that that's a true story.
Yes, I can. Okay. I looked at the evidence, and okay, I'm sorry. I'll give you space to talk. Sorry.
It was on a...
Now you notice there, Claire withdraws immediately and gets apologetic. You can't do that. The thing is, once I started telling details, we got interrupted. Once she started telling details, we got interrupted. And of course, Claire gives way to Kylee to do a bunch of speaking, which is inevitable. We're going to have to listen to Kylee either way. And a lot of the evidence that we literally just got from Kylee is super helpful towards turning in the abuse at TFCC. It helps to show what she knew and what she didn't. It also helps to show that the way that it was manipulated in court is completely different from what Kylee was informed of. Now, the 2 times that I saw her beforehand, the reason that I wasn't sure if she was one of those people or not is because, like I've told you many times, in this stack of shit from Tillamook Family Counseling Center, half of the stuff that I had to do is missing. So Kylie's name isn't in any of that. They do mention her, but they intentionally leave her name out and claim that I was threatening their weekend workers. And Kylee in this video will verify that that is absolutely not the truth.
And ever since I've gotten to Tillamook and tried to explain that this abuse is happening, I've been treated like it's a schizophrenic delusion. Now, I understand that a lot of people don't know the difference between autism and schizophrenia, but I also know that when somebody has an autism diagnosis, then it's important to pay attention to that diagnosis instead of trying to diagnose somebody with something else to try to justify not doing their jobs as mandatory reporters. I was sent to TFCC because they were supposed to be the Adult Protective Services here, and when I went in, instead of the Adult Protective Services thing, they kept on sending me to the crisis people and the crisis line, and they repeatedly told me that that's not their job or that's not their paid job. They also intentionally tried to send me into a panic attack.
Yeah, the things that I literally just told her, just right there, are crimes. They're actual crimes. These are things that mandatory reporters will say when they don't want to do their job. To try to dismiss the victim, deter the victim, defer the victim to somebody else, whatever it takes.
The tone that they use is highly inappropriate, and Claire actually made a phone call with me earlier to TCCHC where they were exactly the same. She
I'll
was
try
a
to find
very,
that tonight,
very
too.
aggressive person as far as the things that she was saying and her adamant attitude towards not taking the situation seriously. So, part of the reason for the call today is, first of all, the investigation has never been started by TFCC. Nobody is actually getting a hold of me and Claire and working on this. Multiple people who work there have tried to reclassify me or intentionally misdiagnose me. I have 7 psychological evaluations going back for at least 7 years. There's actually some going back for...
At a later point in this, she actually, is trying to insinuate that these people better have letters behind their name, and I got to read their names, and I didn't have to go through the letters behind their name because of specifically where they work. Another thing is they get to pretend that my disabilities don't exist unless I go through and jump through all of the hoops and all of the time that it takes to get diagnosed here in Oregon, which I do have another diagnosis from here in Oregon. But the fact is, a disabled person is disabled whether they were diagnosed in Nebraska or Colorado or Oregon. Let's imagine that your son or daughter goes on vacation and they're in Oregon and they're autistic and they get mugged by somebody here in Oregon. Well, they have rights as a disabled person. It's likely that they were targeted because they were a disabled person who's alone. But none of these agencies here in Oregon are going to do anything because they want you to be diagnosed by Oregon. You literally have to become a citizen of Oregon and get everything redone in Oregon before you can even turn in a crime. No. The way that they try to play it, and that includes Kylee in this conversation, is absolutely wrong. It's legal to literally prevent a victim from turning in evidence or getting justice, getting heard. It's perfectly legal that if a disabled person tries to turn in police officers who assaulted them, this is a perfectly acceptable way to do it. Since 2022, I've had to jump through these hoops here in Tillamook. This abuse is so massive There is so much abuse and so much evidence of it that these people ignoring just little bits and pieces and talking over the parts they don't want to hear just don't cut it.
Other than that, but I don't currently have access to them in my tent. So I'm being exploited because I'm disabled. I'm also getting exploited for my disability money. I'm also being sent to services that are not doing their jobs. Every one of these services, including TFCC and Claire, has made me fill out housing paperwork repeatedly for them only to lose the housing paperwork, and it takes a lot of time to get that done. And the fact is that that's just a stall tactic. Nobody who is being abused should have to fill out a bunch of housing paperwork and go to 10 different agencies to try to turn it in. But as a homeless person, mandatory reporters don't want to do their jobs. So here I am. I've had to endure literally dozens of assaults and dozens of situations of vandalism that are recorded. Matter of fact, Claire has recordings of several of the assaults. She's gotten to see the evidence from the stuff on A&E, which is the True Crime Channel or whatever. Like, it's a very big thing. There are literally hundreds of websites dedicated to this, and she's gotten to look up some of that. Now, my psychological evaluations as well show that I'm not schizophrenic or delusional. These are from forensic evaluators for the state of Oregon. So obviously what they have to say does need to be taken seriously. There's also the stuff that's mysteriously missing from the TFCC files that were sent to my attorney, because over half of the interactions aren't even in there. Over half of the times that I had to speak with him, it wasn't in there. The other thing is that a lot of the stuff that was said in there is exactly the opposite of what the evidence shows. And I've been sending Claire the evidence of what was said versus the evidence of the reality of the situation, and she's able to tell very, very easily that what they're saying and the reality of the situation aren't true. If I am physically assaulted and it's recorded, and the people at TFCC try to pretend that it's a delusion, well, the fact is, whether they want to believe it's a delusion or not doesn't detract from the fact that there's a recording of it.
Okay, yeah, but so is there anything I can help you with? Maybe I can. Do you want to fill out something to report it, or
I've
do you want services here?
I've tried to fill out stuff there.
I believe that this part right here isn't actually Kylee. I think this part is the receptionist, and we get to talk to Kylee shortly.
Also repeatedly sent to the services there, but the people at TFCC are refusing to work with me because I tried to turn them in when I was in jail. Meanwhile, they didn't do that when I tried to turn them in back in 2022 and 2023. Instead, what they did is try pretending I'm schizophrenic and delusional to hide their mistakes. So this is a situation where crimes have been committed by people at TFCC, and that does need to be turned in and taken seriously. And even though I've been told and assured that an investigator is going to get a hold of me, I've been hearing that empty promise since 2022, and I've been assaulted enough times that at this point these are felonies that are being committed. Also, the fact that they work together with other individuals is a whole other series of felonies. It's not just the misdemeanor of failure to...
What she tries to push later on in the video is a redaction, and she keeps saying that over and over and over again, and Claire speaks up a little bit there, and basically I have to go along with that crap. No, I'm not okay with the redaction, not even in the least bit. What I'm okay with is for them releasing all of my files to me, not destroying evidence that they fucked up. But Claire is not quite understanding of what she's saying at that point. And for me, I just have to power through it and keep saying what I need to say. Sure, we do need a redaction. It needs to be changed. However, changing it after the damage has already been done in court, and I've already had to spend 15 months incarcerated as punishment for trying to turn in my predators, and that includes the people at TFCC who helped to make this happen. Yeah, this is definitely something where we need to have the copies of the evidence that shows all the fucked up shit that they did when they made mistakes. Just redacting it is not good enough. That's basically, at this point, redacting anything would constitute destruction of evidence.
Report as a mandatory reporter. It's also covering up the mistake. It's not illegal to make a mistake. It is illegal to cover it up. So I need to speak with somebody. While I've got Claire on the phone, we're fighting hard to make the availability for both of us to be able to turn this in together, which I have the right to do, and I would like to be able to speak somebody to do that with, instead of being pawned off for another week.
Now, see, since both of us are there, when I state something that's absolutely true, and you'll get to find that out in a lot of these videos, mandatory reporters tend to verify that I'm telling the truth. Now, if I talk to them alone, they tend to be entirely different. And Claire made notice in many of these calls that they are very different when you make them with someone else.
And told somebody will get a hold of me next week, only for me to be told next week that it'll be a week after that. Like, these are stall tactics. They're also illegal. The crimes need to be turned in, and they need to be turned in with a friend or family member, and I have a friend on the phone with me right now.
Okay.
When you go in alone, or your friends or family go in alone, they'll try to basically convince both of y'all not to go in together, not to have a friend or family go in for your safety. As a disabled person, I have the right, and by law, because I am so easy to exploit, they're supposed to provide somebody to do that. Somebody should have been provided before Natalie was killed. And after Natalie was killed, somebody should have been provided to monitor this situation. I stated very clearly that I didn't have a friend or family member to do it. I had lots of people that offered, but they didn't follow through. Even Claire here, this is stuff that could have been done years ago and we could have done together in person. Now it's 100 times harder.
Okay, let me see what I can do. Give me 1 second.
Yes, ma'am. You see how much different it is with you on the phone versus the recordings of me talking to them solo?
Yeah, it's so different. I'm going to transfer you to someone, and then you can let them know. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Who are you transferring us to?
I am transferring you over to Kylee Petrie.
Okay, Kylee Petrie is the lady who pretended that I threatened her life, but we're willing to talk to her because of the evidence, so that'll work.
Okay.
Yeah, Claire, she's the mandatory reporter that I sent the screenshots of the threats against my life that claimed that I threatened to kill her.
And all of her coworkers that spoke about the situation in court, or to me, to my face, or to any of the deputies, lied through their teeth, stated very clearly that I had threatened Kylee. And of course, you'll get to hear in here, yeah, there's a video that she never saw, that she was told about, that other people were telling her that she needed to be afraid for. She never saw the video, and she never claimed that I threatened to kill her. Also, she was the investigator who was supposed to investigate the situation, and they told her not to do so. Well, none of this is my fault. None of it is my choice. She also admits that she doesn't understand why they gave me the phone number that they did. There's also the fact that she wanted to, again, today, refuse to give me a phone number that I could start sending evidence to, because she said that I have like over 1,300 screenshots or something. I don't need to send her 1,300 fucking screenshots. I only need to send her like maybe even just 2 or 3 would be good enough. I don't have to send her every single threat for her to understand I'm being threatened. But she did not, even in this conversation, again, leaves me no way to send her evidence. If I can send her evidence, then I have a verification that they have been sent the evidence. But if they don't provide me with a way to do that, I can't do that. And this is a situation where it's going to be until Tuesday of next week before we're able to do anything. And much of that is because you get to hear Kylee through all of this, basically making it impossible and stopping me to twist it into some obscure something or other that makes you just fuck off with that shit. Do your job. So we're supposed to speak with her next Tuesday. I'm supposed to take evidence in person. But what about for the rest of the week? What about the fact that I'm not able to take care of myself or defend myself or protect myself? And that leaves me vulnerable for a whole week.
Yeah.
Tillamook Family Counseling, this is Kylee.
Hello, Miss Petrie. This is Sean Schwartz. I have.
Hi, Sean. What's going on?
I have a friend on the phone. Her name is Claire Jordan. As a disabled person, I do have the right to have that. One of the
I
things
notice
is
she doesn't argue either. This is
I was
Kylee on
told
the
by
phone
the courts that I needed to send the evidence of the abuse to you. The phone number that I have written down that was supposed to be your number, I sent a whole bunch of screenshots to. My instructions specifically were to send screenshots of the stuff that was texted to me, send the videos to you, and also to text the things that were being said that were threats towards me. So I did that. And then I was never reached out to at any point. And then in court and also repeatedly while I was in jail, it was thrown in my face that apparently you would claim that I had threatened to kill you, which is certainly not the case. Everything that I sent to you were threats against my life. And Claire Jordan has gotten to see not only those screenshots, but she's also gotten to see that they were sent to the TFCC number for you in specific.
Okay, what number do you have for me specifically? Because I don't recall any screenshots or videos anytime recently.
It wasn't recently. This was over 2 years ago. I've been going to you guys since 2022, and I've also been sent around in circles on it. I was sent there specifically because
I was in jail for 15 months. And they all decided they were going to lie and slander my name in order to prevent me from having a fair trial. Now, mind you, I had already tried to turn in John Holland and Mary Lindsay and also the judge in my case. I tried to turn her in before she was the judge in my case. Also, the sheriff's department and the police department, and very specific individuals within that, as well as the DA's office and the public pretenders, because through all of this, they have done everything that they can to ignore the abuse, ignore the assaults, ignore the threats, pretend that they don't exist, pretend that they're delusions. And Kylee, in this, admits that they're not delusions. She admits that she was aware those years ago. And what I'm trying to turn in here is very specifically the fact that, there's a reason that there's, all this time in between when I was trying to turn it in and now. It's because I haven't been able to. I was prevented from doing so. She was given instructions not to work with me.
Supposed to have mandatory reporters, and I am looking up the number right now because this is the number that I was given to try to turn this stuff into. Give me a second.
Okay. What number is that?
I just opened up the phone. It takes a second to scroll to it, but I'm working on it. So I have you saved in this phone. It's a different phone because I was locked up and I was unable to pay my phone bill. So my phone is different, and so is my phone number. But I'm looking for it.
Okay.
So John Holland claimed in court that I had threatened to kill you, by the way.
Okay.
And that's one of the crimes that I need to turn in. There's a lot of them, especially between himself and Mary Lindsay, who I'm aware that neither of them are working there anymore. Matter of fact,
Mary Lindsay?
She's actually going to verify that some of these people she doesn't recognize their names, but other people that are involved in this, fuck it, we'll just press play.
See, is that what you said?
Mary Lindsay, yes, ma'am. Hold on, I'm gonna actually type it in here. If I type in Kylee, it'll bring you up.
Okay.
All right, it says Kylee, TFCC investigator, and then we'll. So the phone number that I have is 503-815-5459, and I was told specifically that that was the phone number for Kylee, the TFCC investigator, who I was supposed to send this evidence to. They claimed in court that I had threatened to kill you, by the way.
Okay, so that number that you just gave me is my direct office line. It's like an office desk phone though, so I don't have any way of receiving like texts or.
You see, the number that I was told that I should send this evidence to, she's telling me it was her desk line. That is not my fault. It's also not my fault that she never tried to get a hold of me to clear it up. It's not my fault that when I called to try to clear it up and made repeated calls kindly and nicely about it, that they were all ignored. It's also not my fault that they were not getting a hold of me when they were supposed to. When you tell me that you're going to call me, like, this stuff should have been taken care of, obviously, over 2 years ago. This is obvious. And when they want to pretend it's in the past, no, it's still ongoing, because it didn't start 2 years ago. It started in 2022 here, and it continues to this day. It's not like one incident happened and everything's fine and dandy and I just don't want to get on with it. No, that's not what it is at all. This destroys my future.
Anything like that through that line.
Well, thank you for letting us know that, because that is an important piece of information that would help to prevent you from being able to see that stuff. But also, if you can't receive that because it's a landline or your direct office line, then how is it that John and them wanted to get off claiming that I was threatening to kill you? That makes no sense whatsoever.
So that might have to do with this was a very long time ago, but there was a YouTube video of your and my conversation.
So apparently a YouTube video of me and her conversation. Well, except that I didn't threaten her. So let's hear this bullshit excuse out of her. It'll change a couple of times during this. By the way, she's supposed to be an investigator. This is why it's so easy to catch these people. You know, they're not as clean about covering their tracks as a criminal out on the streets. And the reason for this is because these guys know that they'll have help covering their tracks. The kind of help that you can't get from people on the streets.
There was two of them. I don't know. I didn't see the video. I know that somebody contacted me with concerns for my safety because of that YouTube video. But that was like, gosh, that was probably Sean's second time I talked to you. So that was back a couple of years plus ago.
So she verifies that she was one of the people that spoke to me. And she's the one that they were claiming that I was threatening to kill. But there's no threats against her life anywhere. None. So where are they coming off on this? The other thing is, when I made phone calls that were nice and calm and collective, it didn't do anything. These people were supposed to investigate. I was told by the courts to go to this woman in specific, to a specific number, to send her that evidence to, because she's an investigator. And obviously, that number didn't work. That evidence never got to her. And also, the so-called threats against her life didn't exist. in this. Obviously, other people are calling her and pretending like I would hurt her, so they have a quote-unquote valid excuse for continuing to commit felonies by not doing their jobs. Her not doing her job, never making any attempt to contact me at all, literally no effort through any of this. See, she wants to pretend that she started refusing to do her job because she was told to refuse to do her job because of these YouTube videos, but they were refusing to do their jobs, including her, before that. Obviously, if I was recording it, I was recording her refusing to do her jobs, and if those recordings are on my YouTube channel, they're still available. There's a big difference between threatening somebody and somebody going out of their way to pretend like they're being threatened, and she admits she didn't even see or hear the video. She acts completely clueless about the situation, and she also acts completely stupid about the consequences for me of them doing that. And her co-workers wanted to try to convince her not to investigate. I'm supposed to turn in John Holland and Tammy Waddell to this woman who is being told by John Holland and Tammy Waddell to ignore me. And then she wants to claim there's like 16 calls of me yelling. Well, okay. There might have actually been 16 calls of me yelling, but how many calls are there of me calling and not yelling? Like, I'm getting yelled at while people are hitting me. I shouldn't have to set the example of, hey, this is what these people are doing to me. You can't tell them that this is happening. They play stupid. But you give them an example so that they understand. No, they're not going to listen to that example. They're going to use that example to pretend that they're victims. And Kylee does do the same thing in this, and she also makes excuses throughout this for my predators. No, the fucking narrative that she sells throughout this goddamn thing is all fucking bullshit.
Yes, and the abuse over those situations still continues. That has still been used against me in court, and since that's in my paperwork, that's going to be used against me going forward. I don't go threatening to kill people.
Okay, well, what?
I speak up about the abuse,
What?
and I speak up about the things that people are doing to me. These aren't threats against you, and I do make videos where I'm angry, but anybody under these situations would be angry. Am I wrong about that, Claire?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
So the thing is that TFCC created the safety issues, and now they're refusing to work with me and dragging this out. The stuff that I was told to send you years ago, I sent to the number that I was given. And as far as threatening to harm you people, I absolutely never did. Not once, ever. And it's not okay for those things to be used against me when they didn't happen. Now, Claire can verify.
I don't know the context of how they were.
Well, that's the thing, is that if you don't know the context, it shouldn't have been used. If you were directly threatened, that would make sense, but you absolutely weren't. But the thing is...
I'll be honest with you, Sean. You left me some pretty colorful voicemails, too, to the point where I was told that I probably shouldn't give you a call back because they were screaming and yelling and calling me all sorts of names.
That's the thing, ma'am, is that I'm taking physical assaults.
Again, I called them first, calmly, and told them what these people were saying to me and what these people were doing to me. I made those calls repeatedly, and they were ignored. Is Kylee mentioning any of those calls? No, she's not. But then the calls where I give her examples of it. This is what people are saying to me. This is what people are doing to me. So I am making the example. And I, throughout this, explain that to her.
Because nobody was calling me back. Nobody was taking it seriously. And those angry messages that I made are very specifically because I'm taking abuse because mandatory reporters didn't want to do their jobs and want to play victim. I am within my rights to be angry about being physically assaulted as a disabled person and going to the people I'm supposed to as a disabled person. Well, let's start off with...
physically assaulted you?
Well, we've got a very long list going all the way back to when I first got here. Let's start off with Molly, whose last name I don't know, but there were a lot of witnesses to that situation. Multiple assaults by...
Are these providers? Like...
Not that one in specific.
Are these professional people? Okay.
So the Andrew Walnez has assaulted me. Chris Stafford has assaulted me. All of these people use Natalie Bollinger as their excuse, and Claire can verify that. There was also multiple assaults by the sheriff's deputies within the jail, which obviously I don't have access to the recordings, and I'm being blackballed for trying to turn that in. There's also the multiple situations where the people at TFCC tried to pretend that I was threatening to kill people when I wasn't, and they did everything they could as far as the sheriff's department went to use the people at TFCC who repeatedly didn't do their jobs as mandatory reporters to try to rubber stamp me, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with that term, being an investigator. Basically, they tried to rubber stamp me as schizophrenic and delusional. Now, I tried to go in there in person and show that stuff to you. The thing is that I called repeatedly and was treated completely like shit before I ever called up angry, and I had to call up angry because if I talk nicely, I'm treated like there's no issue. And that's certainly not okay. Like right now, obviously I've got a little bit of an elevated tone, but I'm not yelling at you. I'm not hateful towards you. I hate the situation. I hate being abused. I hate having to be afraid to go to TFCC. I hate having to be afraid to go to CARE. I hate having to be afraid to go to the police. But it is their choices and their decisions and their lack of doing what they're supposed to that created the safety situation. Because when I tried to turn in the people who were harming me as a homeless and disabled person, I was treated like a drug addict and a schizophrenic. That is the automatic go-to, and that's illegal as all hell. Also, intentionally lying about the situation after the fact is also illegal as all hell. For them to openly claim in court that I had threatened to kill you is an outright lie. There's also the circumstances behind it, and because I was prevented from having an attorney at that time, I wasn't allowed to...
I also want to add that apparently there is no cause for alarm when people yell and scream those things at me, but it is a definite cause for alarm if I give people examples of what I'm going through. That doesn't seem to make much sense to me. Now you guys get to see the nice videos like this one versus the mean videos where I'm screaming and raging, right? That's the way you want to look at it. You want to ignore all of the evidence that shows that I make videos like this one, and you just want to refer to one where I am literally screaming, right? The screaming after the fact, it justifies the fact that they didn't do their jobs to begin with. That's what you want to pretend. It's kind of like there's this game that a lot of women like to play in the United States. How much can I destroy a man's life before he calls me the C word? And then as soon as he calls her the C word, somehow magically that justifies every single thing that she ever did to him, including stealing, cheating, hitting him, destroying stuff. It don't matter.
Show any of that. Meanwhile, public defenders don't defend us, first of all. And second of all, we shouldn't be charged with crimes for trying to turn in people assaulting us and threatening our lives. And I've got a lot of evidence, and Claire has made the time to be on the phone with me, and I'm sure if we tried to schedule an appointment where I could walk in with my evidence in person and sit down with you, that she would work at it and try to make sure that...
Now this is what I've been trying to get since before Natalie was killed. Obviously, Claire can't go in with me in person to see this stuff. She's not able. She's in a different state. But at least she's going to make the effort, and she's actually looked at the evidence. Well, a very tiny amount of it. There's a shit ton of it. And obviously, Kylee is one of those people that I had talked to in the past. Now, I can't remember every single name of every single person that I met when I first got to town and had to run through this gamut the first time or the second time. With their changeover in staff, that makes it even more complicated to try to remember the exact name and date of every single situation. The sheer number of these situations makes it even more complicated. And the number of situations that happen before I actually get somebody to pretend like they're going to listen, it gets compounded. And you get to hear her pull different versions of the in the past stuff. She's a little more sly about it, but it's the same stuff. These people work together. So, since Andrew Wolnez and the police worked together on this situation, and since the police also worked with Mossam Bijan and also worked with Scott Brown, two of my predators, and they wanted to use lies to deprive me of my rights. Lies like claiming that I threatened the life of Miss Kylee here. And they kept on doing that too. Like I'd try to turn in what was going on, and I'd get interrupted by the deputy or by whoever her coworker was, and they'd interrupt me and say, "You threatened to kill one of the people at TFCC." No, the fuck I didn't. No, the fuck I didn't.
She could be there for that call for my safety, or for that visit for my safety.
Yeah, you can have whoever you want if you and I are to meet, you can have whoever you want there.
And that's my right. She's aware that it's my right. And there's some other phone calls that we made today that are really important too, because we had to call TCCHC, and my God, that woman was fucking horrible.
Yes, they're respectful and to everything. So let me just back up a little bit. So Molly, Andrew, and Chris are the people that you are wanting to report as the ones who physically abused you?
There are three of there's been about 25 people, civilian-wise, in Tillamook who have taken part in the assaults. And then there's about 20 law enforcement officers altogether who have taken part in either the assaults or the other forms of abuse, which Claire and I have gone over the papers that show what abuse I'm supposed to turn in, and it constitutes everything that I tried to turn in, not just physical assaults.
Okay, so for me to investigate physical abuse, just in general, not specific to you or anyone specifically, but in general, the victim needs to be receiving mental health services, and the person who's alleged of the abuse needs to be...
So I'm being denied mental health services. That's the thing. I'm being denied mental health services by TFCC to retaliate against me for telling on them. I'm also being retaliated against by TCCHC. So I don't have the availability for that. When these people commit crimes against me, it is not safe for me to go back. It is necessary to turn in the abuse with a friend or family member. That's just how it is. That's specifically what my paperwork says too.
A caregiver or a behavioral health professional.
And that's the thing, is that you guys are behavioral health professionals, or supposed to be. The other thing is...
Okay, but are you actively... Go ahead.
The thing about the mandatory reporter laws is that I'm disabled. I'm a disabled person who is being abused.
I'm only disabled if I'm actively in mental health care, is what she was trying to say before. And now she's got a bullshit argument for this one too.
Because he's disabled. Those disabilities make me vulnerable. So does the abuse and the slander that's been put in my courts. That's used to take advantage of me and victimize me as well.
Depending on what your disability is whether I'm involved in your case or I'm not involved in your case, is what I'm just trying to say.
Well, my diagnoses are post-traumatic stress disorder and Asperger's disorder, which is now type 1 autism. I also have Tourette syndrome and several others.
Okay.
But the stuff that you guys keep writing down is that I'm delusional. The thing that needs to
Okay,
be...
well, I'm not part of the mental health side, so for you to say you guys, I mean, I'm not labeling that as... I'm not labeling you with anything. I'm asking you.
Well, the abuse by the other people at TFCC, it doesn't just include physical abuse. And I have been forced into homelessness. I was in an assisted living facility before I was forced into homelessness. The other thing is...
Okay, what assisted facility were you at?
I was in the assisted living in Chapel, Nebraska, and I want to say it's called Hilltop Manor.
Okay, were you in one in Oregon?
No, ma'am. I came here fleeing abuse.
Okay.
But the fact is that all of this comes down to me being a disabled person who police and other services are refusing to do their job by acknowledging I'm disabled, but assigning the wrong disabilities. They're trying to discredit me so they don't have to do their job, or to justify the fact they didn't do their job after the fact. The fact that I have recordings of the abuse shows that I am vulnerable. And the laws are very specific about it being a vulnerable adult. There's also the situation where it does not have to be somebody in a care facility. The situation with me coming to Oregon,
I
didn't plan on coming here to live in Oregon. I came here to help find two missing people, David and Katie Saltzman, who were going to come to Nebraska and help me to deal with the Natalie Bollinger case. Instead, they disappeared. I specifically came here fleeing abuse in Nebraska of the same sort I'm having to deal with here. I try to turn in the crimes that have been committed against me to the police. The police play stupid, refuse to investigate, run me around in circles, and tell me to go to mental health. As a disabled person, I have a list of the people that I'm supposed to go to and a list of the things that I'm supposed to turn in, which includes financial abuse. It also includes fraud. It also includes physical abuse. It encompasses a lot.
Okay.
I've also had to deal with all those.
So where are you getting services from right now? Where are you getting services from?
Claire, am I wrong about this, or am I being denied services?
He has been denied services and told that they are no longer his PCP, so he doesn't have services, and he called. Sorry, I have stress hiccups.
I've been to all of the services here. I keep going back to CARE. I have been to TFCC repeatedly. I went to TCCHC repeatedly. And the thing is that when I speak up about the abuse, my videos are about the...
Me and Claire had just gotten done talking to TCCHC maybe 30 minutes earlier.
Abuse from you guys. They're not threats towards you. They're me being angry because of me being abused over you guys pretending it's delusional. And I don't mean you in specific. I mean TFCC. I mean TCCHC. I mean all of these different agencies that me as a disabled person is supposed to go to for assistance. I can't do these things for myself. I'm incapable of taking care of myself because of my disabilities, and I've gone in repeatedly to show that evidence. The first time I went into TFCC, I went in there with my diagnosis piece of paperwork, all of that, and they didn't want to look at it and refused to look at it. When I tried to show them recordings of me being physically assaulted, they said they don't need to look at the video, that they believe me, but if they believe me, they'd have turned it in, which they didn't. Now, if they refuse to turn that in right away like they're supposed to and fill out a written report within 24 hours, they have committed a crime. So then I had to try to turn in the crimes that were committed against me, and I'm told to turn in the crimes committed by TFCC to the people at TFCC. And I had to do the same thing at TCCHC earlier with Claire, and she can verify that we were not treated very well. We were talked down to like we were dogs.
At which place?
TCCHC, Tillamook County Community Health Center.
Okay. All right. So, as far as the individuals, the civilians that you named, those would not be reported to me because they're not fall under the requirements for me to be involved because of they're just people in the community.
So,
There are people in the community who are taking advantage of a vulnerable adult, but she's pretending that that's not the case.
in that circumstance, those do need to be reported to the police. And you're
I
telling
did
me
go
that
to
you
the
have
police,
tried to
and
do
they
that,
sent me.
and that hasn't.
They sent me to you guys. They sent me to you guys. The police sent me to you. They didn't want to do their job. They wanted to assume that I was a schizophrenic, delusional nut job and send me to TFCC. And then I was stuck there going to appointment after appointment every 30 days, but I'm being assaulted in between those appointments, and I was sent there specifically because as a disabled person, I needed to go to a mandatory reporter who was going to take the situation seriously. When you say that you can't do anything about it because it's just civilians, no, I'm still disabled and there's still assaults. There are also people who are still doing it.
I'm not
and
saying that you're not disabled.
I still have to be afraid of the police or to go to the police. I also have to be afraid to try to go to TFCC. There's also the fact that no investigation has been started on any of this. I am a disabled person, and every mandatory reporter makes some excuse why it's their job to ignore it. It's not your job to ignore it. If this happened to a 9-year-old girl, you would be all over it like flies on shit. Sorry, flies on stink. I apologize for cursing. I don't want you to think I'm cursing
very
at you.
specific rules that we have. We have very specific rules that we have to follow as well. You know, we have laws that we have to abide by.
Yeah, the mandatory reporter laws. It's mandated by law. I'm turning in.
Okay, but
let me read from the piece of paper that I was given at the Seventh-day Adventist Hospital here in Tillamook on what I'm supposed to do to turn in abuse. I will read to you very specifically what it says, and I will also let you know that when I got my disability in 2017, I got a piece of paper that was nearly identical to it, and I have tried to follow those guidelines because they're the guidelines of how to turn this stuff into mandatory reporters. But I can't force you guys to take it seriously or to stop trying to.
Now, you guys who are on my YouTube channel, if you've followed the story and watched the videos, which most of you probably haven't, you'll know that those are actually already on my YouTube channel. So, even though I can't find them currently, and I am still looking for them.
Change the subject, and I'm not talking about you in specific. I'm talking about everybody. Where is that? And I'm sorry, but I did send it to Claire, and I did have it out. But like I said, there's a whole bunch of pieces of paper in here. Thank you for being patient about it. This might be it.
yeah. So let me ask you really quick. So you also said that you have Asperger's or autism. Have you been found eligible for services in Oregon for those two diagnoses?
Ma'am, I get disability money. I got disability money before I even came to Oregon. I get $894 a month disability.
Right.
Yes, there's other services.
For me, I'm not concerned about your disability money.
There are a lot of other services that I'm eligible for, but I'm being denied those services because I have to go through you guys. And I have to go through CARE.
Okay.
And I have to go through all these other services that are aware that I'm already trying to turn in a bunch of people that work there. I mean, me and Claire are both very unhappy about the fact that I'm having to turn in my predators literally to themselves by name in some of these occasions, or at least having to turn them in to their coworkers who basically say that it's not their job. There's always some little piddly excuse that they'll find that they don't have to do it, but the fact is I'm being harmed because they're looking for excuses not to do their jobs. There's a big difference between digging for an excuse to not do your jobs. Like some of these people pretended that they wouldn't do anything and couldn't do anything because I wasn't a child. Well, what that shows me is that they looked up the mandatory reporter laws on the internet. When you look up mandatory reporter laws on the internet.
I also want to stop to show that basically she's trying to decide and dictate what it is that I'm allowed to tell her. And that's not it. You have to listen to a victim's story from start to finish, not interrupt them in the middle of it and assume what they're going to say, or pretend that a piece of information is not important, because it is important. If it wasn't important, I wouldn't be telling her.
It pops up with specifically the child stuff. It doesn't speak about the disabled or the elderly at all.
Right. Well, anybody under the age of 17, it doesn't matter disability or not, it falls under the child reporting laws.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
So she's misreading what it is that I'm telling her. If it's a child, it doesn't matter if they're disabled or not. I didn't say that the child has to be disabled. When did I say that the child has to be disabled? I didn't. It's children, the disabled, and the elderly. Now, you can have a disabled child or a disabled elderly. In both of those situations, that means that there is an increased risk of abuse, not a decreased risk of abuse. And when they show signs that they are being abused and that they're not being heard, that does not make them predatory. That doesn't make them bad people. That makes them victims in a desperate situation. But Kylee doesn't want to allow any of this stuff or any of these things that I'm telling her to be finished saying. And she does, throughout this, say many of the things that are used to deter victims from turning it in. Oh, well, you can't turn in that particular part to me. Even though these people work together, we have to ignore half of them because I don't want to hear it. No matter how much them and their part of the situation helps to seal it all together and show the actual truth, you're not going to look at the whole truth. Now, of course, I got an appointment to go try a meeting with Kylee next week. Well, there's the safety issue that is going to continue throughout this entire week. I have to be afraid to go anywhere, to do anything, and I'm broke. And the help that I was supposed to have, I'm not getting that help. These people who are supposed to help me are still procrastinating about it. They want to pretend that I have to be diagnosed in Oregon. Well, I've got diagnoses from here in Oregon. Leslie Carter put on that paperwork very clearly that I'm autistic.
For that specific thing. So as for the type of abuse that I investigate, and I'm not trying to shrug you off, that's not what we're doing here, but for the physical piece, that part I can't get involved in because those individuals they don't fit into my purview. However, John...
Abusing a disabled person does not fall under her purview. Abuse against a vulnerable adult doesn't fall under her purview. The things that Adult Protective Services is supposed to investigate, this woman who is the only Adult Protective Services person in apparently the entire county, from what it seems like, apparently it doesn't fall under her purview.
Holland, and you said Mary Lindsay? Am I saying that name correctly? That name doesn't sound familiar. Okay,
Yeah.
so Mary Lindsay and John Holland are mental health providers. So what consider, besides rubber stamping you, because that's what I heard you say earlier, besides that, what type of abuse have those two? If Mary is a mental health professional,
Actually,
I'm assuming she is.
I have a list of the mental health professionals from TFCC that I'm trying to turn it in because it's not just those two. When I had to try to turn in people at TFCC for, instead of helping me as a disabled person who's being abused, which is what I was sent there for, they wanted to set me up for appointments. They didn't set me up with a caseworker, just appointments where I was talked down to, disrespected, and treated like a dog. I repeatedly tried to turn in the abuse because I was sent to you guys because of my disabilities. The police said that it was your job. I understand that they just didn't want to do their jobs and they were pawning me off on you guys. But then when I got a hold of you guys, I had to speak to people from TFCC who were telling me the opposite of what the police were saying. And I said, well, could you tell the police that for me? And they said, well, we can't do that. It's against HIPAA. Meanwhile, calling me mentally ill isn't against HIPAA, but bringing up my actual the actual disabilities I've been diagnosed with apparently is. For them to insinuate that I'm schizophrenic by calling me mentally ill is apparently not against HIPAA, but me bringing up the fact that I'm not schizophrenic and not delusional and do have diagnoses showing that I'm not schizophrenic or delusional, and all of my mental health paperwork that I was able to go to independently, all of these people state very clearly that I'm not schizophrenic or delusional, and yet that's still in almost every piece of paper that was sent to my attorney from TFCC. So in each one of these individual pieces of paper, we can go over them. Let me see. This one right here is from Catherine Cias. She's another one I had to try to turn in. So this one was from Catherine Cias. Yes, ma'am. This one is from 1/28/2023 from a visit at the hospital where people were trying to bully me into killing myself over the Natalie Bollinger situation.
When you, the 1/28/23, are you looking at like a progress note that she wrote?
It says TFCC Crisis Screening Assessment.
Okay.
So it was the crisis team repeatedly, over and over again. What ended up happening with Catherine Cias, and it doesn't just have her name on it, there's other people that were involved. But the situation was I was being harmed by people here in Tillamook, and the police refused to do their jobs. The physical assaults and also the people harassing me over the internet over the Natalie Bollinger death and the thing on A&E, which Claire has already verified that that's real, that's not a delusion. And all of these pieces of paper that I have
I've always believed and known that that was not a delusion.
All right, so always. So since she's always known and believed that that's not a delusion, then how far back did she know that? And why is it that her coworkers continued to pretend that? Because see, if she's telling me that she's the person that I talked to several years ago about this, and before all this stuff with John Holland and all that shit, of course, if she's that lady, well then, obviously they at TFCC were well aware that it wasn't a delusion before the fact. Why isn't that in my paperwork? That she knew that I was telling the truth. Or the part where Shay Darnell said she knew I was telling the truth. Or the part where Deputy Fenwald verified to Rebecca Connors and Tammy Waddell that the Natalie Bollinger situation was true. And yet they continued to pretend that it was a delusion. Continued to pretend that I was delusional for telling the truth, and they knew that I was telling the truth, and Kylee just verified that they knew that I was telling the truth. And I do say they because that should have been in my notes that were sent to my attorney, and voila, just like the information with Lacey Hawkins, who also knew that I was telling the truth and had multiple verifications by Deputy Taylor, who was there the whole time. Well, that's somehow magically not in that paperwork either.
I know that was...
Well, your coworkers...
I don't believe that was a delusion.
Your coworkers continued to pretend that it was a delusion in court.
And still do.
We also have the verification in these notes, because I have... The one from Catherine Cias isn't the only one. There's about 30 of them here. Well, maybe not 30.
There's about 30 pieces of paper
altogether. But all of them are the same type of stuff, the same type of pretending that Natalie Bollinger in that situation is a delusion, and pretending that me saying that I went around to all the places that I was told to get help, and all of them told me it wasn't their job and sent me to someone else. They also claimed that that was a delusion. Those are absolutely not delusions. The other thing is she's not qualified to make that diagnosis. Now, the very specific situation with Catherine Cias is that a guy named Mike, who worked at the Denny's, he was the manager there. He was aware that I was being targeted by some of the local youth, as well as by his boss, a woman named Wendy. And so he took me to the hospital to help turn that in. I was having a mental breakdown. You guys might call it an autistic meltdown, but it's a mental breakdown from abuse and also neglect. It's the neglect part as you...
Let me pause for a second. I don't know if you can hear that plastic bag sound. That's a rat tucked into one corner of my tent, and he's making some noise. Sometimes I'm surprised how loud plastic bags are in a recording. So I'm going to get him to shut up a little bit by tapping that area with my cane. Hopefully that shuts him up for a little bit.
Probably are well aware, when a girl cuts on herself, it's not because dad raped her, it's because mom didn't listen when she tried to turn it in. People self-harm when they're not heard. So
were all these people targeting you? Correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Were all these people targeting you because of the Natalie stuff?
Yes, ma'am. Well, mostly.
Or was there other reasons? Okay.
It was mostly because of the Natalie Bollinger situation. It was also partly because when people made mistakes, they wanted to hide them. When they realized that they were wrong, they didn't want to admit that they were wrong. They'd rather press false charges against me and threaten, harass, intimidate me, or even laugh in my face. And I do have recordings of mental health professionals literally laughing at me. Matter of fact, one of the things that I was pissed off with about you, I was down at CARE, and I was talking to one of the gentlemen down there, and I was telling him that I was being...
Not sure if you noticed this, if you guys are on my channel and pissed off that I say this stuff, I admit it to the people that I said it about. When you talk about transparent, you mean me? I don't know anybody else as honest as me. And it sucks. It sucks that I literally had to lie to try to get court dates. And how fucked up is that? Telling the truth just got me treated like a liar.
Falsely accused of threatening to kill Kylee, who's the TFCC investigator, and he said, "Oh, that's the lady who laughed at you down there." So, I don't... Yeah, well, like I said, I've been to TFCC more than once. But I tried to tell him about the abuse.
You and I have talked on the phone twice, and you recorded both times,
So, apparently I recorded both times. If I recorded those phone calls, you'd think that she would remember if I threatened her life in those phone calls. And she's not mentioning anything about me supposedly threatening her life in those phone calls. She's telling me that people called her later to tell me that she needs to pretend to be afraid. Well, of what? Because I'm pissed off that I was blown off again and again?
which is what you put on your YouTube channel, is what prompted people to call me, telling me that I was in danger.
Well, you're not in danger.
And clearly I did not think I was in danger because nothing happened with that.
And see, clearly, she did not think she was in danger. All this shit that they wanted to pull, not my fault. John Holland and the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department specifically worked together to make this happen. Not just John Holland, but many people who work at TFCC. And their supposed victim, obviously, is not a victim. They had to tell her to be a victim. And that's not the first time either. Officer Sadler here in Tillamook was telling people for the last court situation, he was asking them if they wanted to be victims. Hey, do you guys want to be victims? Like, holy shit. Yeah, they will literally go out of their way to find people who are predatory towards me to have those people pretend to be victims. And that is recorded on Sadler's body camera, which I don't have access to. I got to get my attorney to or my public pretender that I had to send it to me. And he's a lazy POS who spends a couple of months in the United States and 3 months in Ethiopia, where apparently, I'm fairly certain that he's not a real Muslim. I have to say that outright.
Except that it put me in danger because it's used to discredit me and to pretend that nobody at TFCC did anything wrong. I'm some schizophrenic nut job who's delusional and threatening to kill you. Like, you are actually a part of the case because of that in specific.
Well, they probably have the voice notes too, because they did not sound very good. But anyways, let's just step past this for just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
So Catherine Sias.
I should tell you that story real quick. What happened is, when I went to the hospital to turn this in, Mike, who had gone in with me, explained to them that I was being harmed. And she wrote it down in here that they had said that I was being
the community
harmed.
People?
Yeah, Mike.
Okay.
Mike McKinster is his name. So he told them that
That's
I was being abused. Yeah. So he told them that I was being abused, but then he had to go back to work. When he went back to work, all Catherine Sias cared about, I was trying to tell her about the abuse that I was having to go through, and like I was telling you about the papers before, I'm following the instructions that are on them. They tell me that one of the places that I can go as a victim of abuse who's disabled is go to the hospital, go to the emergency room. You know, I went to all the places I was told to. So when I was at the emergency room, I was trying to explain to the hospital that I needed a social worker there so I could turn this abuse in appropriately. So Catherine Sias showed up, and that's when Mike McKinster left. And as soon as Mike McKinster left, the doctor who was there, his name is Dr. Stephanides.
Okay.
So,
that's the Tillamook ER doctor, right?
Yes, ma'am. So when I was in the hospital, and there's a lot more crimes that we'll get into later on. We'll try to focus on just this one day, but there's a lot of crimes that were committed against me, and I'm sorry if I'm scatterbrained on it. It's overwhelming and it's traumatic. So when I was in the hospital trying to explain to Catherine Sias about the abuse, all she wanted to do is repeatedly take it back to, do you want to hurt yourself or someone else? Are you trying to hurt yourself or someone else? And I answered those questions 7 times, I told her. And I repeatedly explained to her, but what I'm trying to turn in is abuse that people are doing to me. People are trying to push me to kill myself. They are threatening to kill me and also trying to coerce me into killing myself. And I need to be able to turn that in. Now, Catherine Sias wasn't having that. She wasn't. Oh, hey. Sorry, a dog just came in. They make things better. So the situation with her doing that over and over again and using a very, very mean tone about it was that I had already answered her question repeatedly, and she was stuck on that. And so then she got a very angry tone with me and said that we're done. So that's when Dr. Stephanides stepped into the doorway of the room and was telling me that I needed to leave the hospital. But I couldn't because he was in the way. So then he poked me repeatedly and shoved me back into the room and told me that I needed to leave the hospital. He was physically assaulting me in the hospital and wouldn't allow me to leave while he was telling me to leave. And I had to try to turn that in. And the thing is that what Catherine Sias wrote on here, she at least wrote down that I was brought in by another member of the community, and she at least wrote down that the abuse was actually happening. But then we get into all of the rest of these after that. I had to try to turn in Catherine Sias because she wasn't interested in doing anything. She was interested in trying to have me pegged as trying to harm myself, and that was not the case. I said people were trying to bully me into killing myself. That's not the same as saying that I'm trying to kill myself. And what she wrote down in here is that I was suicidal. Now, that's not okay. It's not okay to use suicidal ideations as a tool to prevent victims from being heard. Just like it's not okay to call a victim mentally ill as an excuse not to do your job as a mandatory reporter. If somebody is quote-unquote mentally ill, they are at a higher bracket risk for being abused. The next ones in here are people like Tammy Waddell taking part in this, and
what did Tammy do?
Well, first of all, Tammy didn't end up seeing me. on multiple situations where I had to try to turn in the abuse, and instead of being able to turn in abuse, I was sent to people like John Holland or whoever else. Tammy Waddell was the rubber stamp.
Was the crisis?
She's the one who rubber stamped everything.
She was the person? Okay.
Yeah. So she
did an assessment on you and determined that you were sympathetic?
No. Stop. No, that's not what happened. She never came to visit me.
Okay.
She finally came to visit me in the jail the week that she moved to Florida. That's the only time me and Tammy ever saw each other. But her name is all over my paperwork because she signed off for all of this stuff with John Holland and
as a supervisor.
Yes, but the thing is that John Holland and Mary Lindsay are not qualified to diagnose the things that they were trying to diagnose me with. Oh, Claire, the phone's 10%, so I'm going to plug it in. It might.
Also, they were aware that the Natalie Bollinger situation was true. By that point, they knew that the Natalie Bollinger situation was true, and Kylee in this video has verified that she was aware that the Natalie Bollinger situation is true. But yet, they continued to pretend it was a delusion after that, continued to pretend it was a delusion in court, continued to pretend it was a delusion because they didn't want to get in trouble. They did not take the situation seriously. They ignored every single occasion where I went in calmly and collectively and tried to explain it. Every single occasion where I went in and explained to them in a calm and collective voice, they tried to escalate the situation, raising their voices at me, talking down at me like I'm a dog. And I'm going to play part of that recording from before this too, because we had to contact TCCHC because they're the ones who are supposed to be my medical providers. So I am being prevented from having access to adequate medical anything. There's no medical provider in town at all. I've already been to them. They committed felonies, and now I'm being blackballed from them. We got one more place that we were able to check, and it took a lot of phone calls to find this place, but they're a small clinic, and they don't have any more room. So I, as a disabled person, cannot get health care. Despite the fact that I have Medicare, I can't actually use it.
Sound weird for a second? Are you still there, Claire?
Yep, just listening.
All right. So I've got, like I said, there's about 10 or 15 of these things all together. In that situation, I did try to turn in the assault by Dr. Stephanides, and I also tried to turn in Catherine Cias. And I was just run around in circles and treated like I was delusional the whole time. Meanwhile, in these pieces of paper, the stuff from, give me a second, Tammy Waddell didn't come and see me until, it says 9/24/2024. So that's when Tammy Waddell did finally come and see me. Now,
at the jail, or
yes, ma'am.
This is before or after jail?
This is while I was in jail, because she left for Florida the week later. They didn't tell me any of that. Basically, she was being used to rubber stamp me one last time on the way out the door.
And just so I'm clear, when you're saying rubber stamp, you're saying what you believe is misdiagnosed, right?
Intentional misdiagnosis,
That was the term?
But
yes,
not
ma'am.
just that.
So,
just making sure.
when John Holland came, I explained to him about the Natalie Bollinger situation and that I was being abused over the Natalie situation. This is before I ever went to jail. He came in repeatedly while I was in the jail. He was already aware that the Natalie Bollinger situation was very real. I do have the recordings with that. It's just like you were saying earlier that you were aware that it was true. Well, he was aware too, and he did at least see some of that. But he continued to pretend that it was a schizophrenic delusion. And so did, what's that lady's name? I keep forgetting it. Sorry, there's like 20 names to remember. Obviously, that makes it complicated.
And this is
But
on a small situation.
basically through all of this, I'm telling them I'm not able to take care of myself. I'm telling them that I'm disabled. I'm doing all of the things that I'm told to do. When police tell me to go to TFCC, I go to TFCC. They say it's not their job. The police say it's not their job because I'm mentally ill. It's your job because I'm mentally ill. It's your job to investigate it because I'm mentally ill. It's your job to investigate the crimes against me, and so on and so forth. Like, I'm getting run around in circles. And then Mary Lindsay tried to pretend that because I said I was being run around in circles, that I have delusions about all of these different agencies. The thing is that what I was trying to turn in by those agencies, it's not okay for them to be able to use mental health to discredit their victims. Because mental health, between listening to me about the Natalie Bollinger thing or listening to the cops, they automatically believe the cops. It's kind of like the courts. Are the courts going to look at any of this evidence of the abuse against me? Not after the people at TFCC tried to have me pegged as delusional. Now, Claire has gotten to see that the things that John Holland and Tammy Waddell and all the rest of them wanted to pretend are delusions are not. Matter of fact, Tammy Waddell was told by deputies in the jail that the Natalie Bollinger situation was real, and she didn't write that down in the paperwork. The other thing is, with the John Holland situation and with the Mary Lindsay situation, they didn't write down what I told them that they were claiming was a delusion. They just wrote down that they were delusions. They'll write down plenty of stuff that other people said, regardless of whether it's true or not, without looking it up, just blindly believing it. And that's the problem with being a vulnerable adult, is that these people know that I'm vulnerable, and they're looking for any excuse not to do their jobs.
Charger.
I can't just keep taking these assaults because they refuse to do their jobs. It's mandatory reporters who created this safety issue. Mandatory reporters who knew that Natalie Bollinger was not a delusion, and they wrote in here, let me see if I can find it. Let's see. Oh, and some of these also are from situations with the courts where they actually mentioned that I threatened to kill you, by the way. And I did not threaten to kill you. Regardless of how you guys want to interpret it, the people telling me that they're going to cut off my niece's head, or they're going to dismember my niece and send me pictures of their cock and her gutted chest, that's an actual threat. And I get treated like that's a delusion, despite the fact that Claire Jordan has actually seen those screenshots. She's aware that those are actual threats. Those are very real threats. And that's what I'm angry about. I literally made dozens of calls.
Who and when did those threats come?
They've been coming since...
They've been coming? Okay.
Since 2016, the threats have been coming on. The assaults started in 2016 in Colorado. The thing when Natalie died, that was at the end of 2017, and that's where it became famous on the internet. And you might not know this, or you probably do. True crime is the #1 women's entertainment in America. You did know that, right?
So I did not know that, but I can see why it would be. I mean, I do know a lot of women that like to listen to true crime stuff. So
well, one of them notices
me. About on the internet is when people started harassing you. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, but it wasn't just harassment. These people have coordinated across state lines with people who are actually here in Tillamook who have physically assaulted me, like Andrew Wolnez.
I gotcha. Okay.
It's not just harassment on the internet. If I block their accounts, they make dozens more. People have been making accounts to harass me and even making accounts pretending to be my friends and family for years. And I've got screenshot after screenshot of those. But again, if I say that without Claire there to back me up that I'm telling the truth, it's assumed to be a delusion and it never goes anywhere. Now then there's also the fact that you can only investigate a certain part, and then the other parts can only be investigated by a certain other agency, and then I have to go to another agency for them to investigate another part. But the reality is these people work together. It's not a bunch of individual crimes that were created separate from one another and there's no connection. No, they're all connected. All of them are connected. When these mandatory reporters didn't do their job to turn in the crime to begin with, they either A, have to fess up to the fact that they didn't follow the law to turn it in right away and fill out a written report within 24 hours. Instead, they wanted to pretend that I was delusional and schizophrenic. They wanted to pretend that Natalie Bollinger was a delusion and schizophrenic. They wanted to pretend that the assaults and the threats are delusions and me being schizophrenic.
They didn't do their job for him or me either.
Yeah, she's actually in Colorado.
Okay, so in this part, I'm actually very, very rude to Claire. One of the things is when we turn these things in, there are certain things that need to be turned in together. And when we get the investigation part started, that's when a lot of Claire's stuff is going to come in as very, very, very important. But also in this particular situation, you notice that I absolutely 100% cut her off from being able to tell all of her parts. I need her to verify the abuse against me. And when we turn in the abuse against her, we're not going to focus on my abuse at all. My abuse is supporting arguments. What we're going to be turning in is her abuse in specific, the stuff that happened to her. And I am not going to talk about my stuff unless she asks me to verify something. If it's something that I can verify, I will.
For her safety.
Okay. I think I heard you correctly. You didn't do it for you or him? Is that?
Yes.
I couldn't hear you very well. Okay.
Yes. She used to live here in Tillamook. She's trying to.
Also, I want to stop to mention that Claire can actually hear everything that went on in that conversation, regardless of who was talking. But for some odd reason, Kylee was having problems hearing Claire.
She's got her own stuff that happened here that definitely does need to be heard and definitely needs to be reported as well. But what she's doing right now is acting as my friend or family member, and she did have to go through a lot of this. Some of my predators are her predators as well, specifically by name. Obviously, if a mandatory reporter doesn't follow the law, then it's only a misdemeanor, but no mandatory reporter wants to lose their job and lose their license because they didn't do their job to begin with. So they just pretend I'm delusional and everything I say is made up. But with Natalie Bollinger and that situation being as popular as it is on the internet, and Claire can verify that, you guys can't just hold on to that forever. It's going to come out eventually in the courts that yes, Natalie Bollinger did exist. The situations that I said about her are true. She is not a delusion, and I have been abused since I got here in 2022 over the misdiagnosis of being delusional for telling the truth. The thing is that...
And what are the courts... What's happening in the courts right now? Are you still dealing with court stuff, or is that all behind you now?
Okay, so she's wanting to know about this court stuff because she wants to... Like I said, she's a lot more sly about this than these other folks, but she's an investigator. So let's back this up just a few seconds.
Truth. The thing is that...
And what are the courts... What's happening in the courts right now? Are you still dealing with courts?
So, yes, I am absolutely still dealing with court stuff. I can't get a case going because the investigators won't do shit. They all say it's not their job. They can only investigate a tiny portion, and they're going to ignore all of the supporting evidence. They're going to ignore all of the evidence that shows that I'm being abused over things that I didn't do. What she's going to try to do here is basically slyly insinuate that because it's in the past she can't do anything, and she's going to try to make a mental note of that for later on too. The fact is that it's ongoing. That abuse by TFCC is still ongoing. The neglect by TFCC is still ongoing, and the stuff that they put in my records, anytime that I get arrested, that's going to be used to prevent me from having an honest court date. Their lies in that paperwork are going to be used to insinuate that I am schizophrenic and delusional again. The fact is that she needs to not ignore the history of abuse or the quantity of abuse that I've had to deal with. These assaults by Andrew Wolnez obviously happened after I first went to them telling me these things were happening. They continued to pretend that it was a delusion. all through that situation in 2022 and 2023, Andrew Wolnez didn't start his assaults against me until September of 2023. And these things specifically continued to happen because these people want to pretend any excuse is a good enough excuse to ignore abuse against a disabled homeless adult, no matter how slyly she says it. Now, with me having a lot of experience with that and Claire having next to none, it's something where it's difficult to get Claire to understand the cues as well. But she's doing a better job, a much better job than the first call. She's doing a far better job than every single one of the calls between her and I. I mean, you got to hear through this, Claire is not interrupting all the fucking time to say the same thing over and over again. She's not interrupting all the time to talk about herself. When she does interrupt, it is primarily to talk about herself and her situation, but she does verify I'm telling the truth. And that is the most important part right there, because like I said, my life doesn't matter, my evidence does. I have done horrible things to try to get this evidence seen, but I also know it's at stake. Not just for me, but also for my friends and family.
Stuff, or is that all behind you now?
It isn't behind me because of what was done to me. That stuff is on my permanent records. The stuff that was done and the lies that were put in my records at TFCC. If I get arrested by the police again, TFCC gets to go through their BS that's on all these pieces of paper that I have and use that to pretend that I'm schizophrenic and delusional again and make me start over from ground zero. I had to do 7 psychological evaluations while I was locked up. All of them state very clearly that I am not schizophrenic or delusional. And unlike John Holland and Mary Lindsay, these people are qualified to diagnose schizophrenia. Sorry for talking so fast at the end of that.
No, that's okay. So I guess I said that incorrectly. When I say is this still happening, I mean, like, do you have an upcoming court date, or is this just now part of your record and that's an issue?
I don't have an upcoming court date. I don't have an upcoming court date. But
are you on probation or anything like that?
So she asks 3 different questions in a row, and she doesn't allow me to answer them. Now, anybody who knows anything about autism or PTSD knows that you ask one question and let them fucking answer it. And she certainly didn't do it there. She got the type of question that she was able to manipulate out of me. So those other 2 questions that she was going to try to twist and manipulate, she's no longer interested in. She's interested in immediately moving on to find out if I'm on probation. Now, multiple times, what the police did by pressing false charges and refusing to drop those charges is when I have to try to turn in assaults against me by these officers, I am told by the investigators, oh, well, we can't investigate anything as long as you've got something open, or we can't investigate anything as long as you're on paper. With all due respect, if you have somebody who's on probation, even if they're on house arrest at their own house, if you go to their house and start shooting at them, you've still committed a goddamn felony. Even if you're a police officer. If you were a police officer and you go and kick in his door and fucking shoot him to death, that's not magically legal just because he's still on paper. If you go into his house and shoot him 30 times and he somehow miraculously survives it, you don't get to pretend that you didn't shoot him just because he's on probation. Or because he's got a court date. Hell, he doesn't have to be on probation. If he's got a court date, this is one of the things they tried pretending too, because I had court dates that they couldn't do anything. This is one of the things that when you try to turn in police officers, this is what they do to stall it out so that you can't. And they will use mental health places like TFCC to do it repeatedly. They will abuse hospitals to do this repeatedly. It's called abusing a position of trust. It's assumed that a police officer is a perfect little angel Boy Scout who would never do anything wrong, despite the fact that we get to see on the news almost every week another police officer who is a fucking rapist or pedophile. Holy shit.
Are you on any type of like formal probation or anything
Fuck no.
like that?
No, ma'am. They had to drop the charges because
Okay.
I wasn't guilty. They didn't have any evidence against me. TFCC illegally lied repeatedly to make sure that I was held for 15 months in the jail. I was denied all of my rights because of the mentally ill tag that they kept on pushing. Very specifically, the people who work at
Gotcha.
TFCC. And they very specifically did it to retaliate against me for trying to turn them in. The evidence of that is overwhelming as well. Like I said, I record everything, but there's so much of it, I can't possibly process it. That's also a part of the disabilities. When I'm overwhelmed, which is a situation that many people take advantage of, I can't function when I'm overwhelmed. So these police officers know that if they have 3 police officers show up and talk over me at once, I'm not getting hurt, I'm just getting overwhelmed, and then they can punish me for being overwhelmed. They know exactly what they're doing. The same as Catherine Cias knew what she was doing. The same as Dr. Stephanides knew what he was doing. John Holland, Mary Lindsay knew what they were doing. Tammy Waddell knew what she was doing. There's also the situation with Rebecca Connors, where she came in to bully me on multiple occasions, and also she was also informed by the deputies in the jail, Deputy Fenewald in specific, that Natalie Bollinger was real and not a delusion. And repeatedly, even with multiple verifications that the Natalie Bollinger situation is not a delusion, somehow all of that paperwork claiming that I was delusional went to all of the people who did psychological evaluations for me, and also went to my attorneys, but it left out a lot of important information. It left out over half of my appointments, such as none of these papers even mention that I spoke to Lacey Hawkins. Lacey Hawkins spent 2 full hours with myself and Deputy Taylor, and this is important. She was going to help turn this stuff in. What she said is that she knows that it's not going to work through Adult Protective Services. She said she knows they're just going to refuse to do their jobs. She also told me that she is afraid to even be in the jail because her dad used to work there, and they fired him for turning in somebody who was abusing an inmate. She let me know a lot of different stuff. Lacey Hawkins, yes ma'am. I want to state for the record, I think she's a badass. I like her very much. But there's also the fact that
she's the one that turned in Mary Lindsay. Woohoo! That's the reason that Mary Lindsay doesn't work there anymore. Lacey Hawkins tried to have trust in the whistleblower policies, and the people at TFCC walked right through those whistleblower policies to immediately make her at risk and put her at risk of being targeted by Mary Lindsay.
Go ahead.
You go ahead and finish your thought.
Well, it's actually a statement. When she came to see me more than once, and none of the pieces of paper that I was sent from TFCC have anything even mentioning that. They also, as soon as they were let know by the deputies that Natalie Bollinger was not a delusion, instead of acting accordingly and treating it appropriately, they just stopped mentioning Natalie while pretending that I'm delusional. She intentionally left out the part where deputies let her know that Natalie Bollinger wasn't a delusion. And in all of
That's
these
Lacey or that was Rebecca?
that was
Or no, that was Rebecca
that was
and
Rebecca
Tammy.
as well as Tammy Waddell. I told everybody that I could. Matter of fact, Tammy Waddell wasn't even supposed to come out there and see me, but the thing is that Lieutenant Silvera was trying to get me rubber stamped, so he needed her out there to do that.
That was the week
Tammy
before she
Waddell is
moved
the
to
primary
Florida,
rubber
like I
stamp
said.
on all of these pieces of paper, regardless of what she is or is not able to diagnose. The fact is that she didn't come out there during these quote-unquote diagnoses, she wasn't talking to me, she wasn't seeing me, she wasn't visiting me. It was John Holland and Mary Lindsay. And John Holland and Mary Lindsay both knew I was trying to turn them in. Now then there's also the
They also knew that Natalie Bollinger was real. They very, very specifically knew that the Natalie Bollinger situation was real. They put on a show at the hospital to try to basically put on a show that I was schizophrenic and delusional for the hospital workers. Mary Lindsay was very loud and using a very angry tone with me in the hospital when she was doing this. It was never, ever about helping me. It was about hiding their mistake. And they were all involved in it. And Kylee here, you get to hear how she's trying to play like she didn't know nothing about this. It must have been some YouTube thing that people were telling her that she needed to be afraid. And well, if I'm making an angry video about you on my YouTube channel, you absolutely 100% do need to be afraid that I'm trying to turn you in for crimes that you've committed. Natalie Bollinger was not afraid that I would physically harm her. She was afraid that people would believe me when I told the truth about the email that she sent about her dad and about her heroin addiction. Natalie Bollinger was embarrassed. And rather than admit that she screwed up so that people would stop hurting me, she decided to double down and play victim. Oh, poor me. I'm just a pretty white girl who can't defend herself. Oh, poor me. I need all these people to help me while I pretend that I don't need anybody's help. No, screw that.
sexual abuse in the jail that, sure, it didn't last very long, but that doesn't make it okay, that doesn't make it legal, and it's not okay to hide that or cover it up. And that situation in specific involved Deputy Boatman, Deputy Barrico, and Mary Lindsay.
Boatman?
Boatman. When I tried to turn him
the other deputy?
He's what? He's a Tillamook deputy.
What was the second deputy you mentioned?
Barrico.
The second one that you mentioned?
Barrico. Beirichio.
Oh gosh, can you tell one more time?
Richio.
Okay. Those are Tillamook police officers, or those are sheriffs?
That's Tillamook Sheriff's Department. That was while I was in the jail. What they kept on doing was they would ignore me and neglect me and refuse to acknowledge my existence at all. And then when I would have a mental breakdown over it and literally have to bash my skull off the window to get them to not ignore me, then they'd come and threaten me with the chair. But since they weren't ignoring me anymore, I didn't have to harm myself anymore because they were finally there. So then, when they did show up, well, then they wanted to put me in the chair. They didn't care about what I was trying to get their attention for. What they cared about was punishing me and putting me in the chair. Now, since I had stopped harming myself, there was no reason to put me in the chair. They strapped me into the chair wrong intentionally, so I was in an extreme amount of pain. I was in a Bam Bam suit, like I was trying to kill myself, which they didn't need to do that either. I have to do desperate things to get the attention to the abuse, and nobody should have to do that. At that point in time, I was in the jail and having to try to turn in people at TFCC.
I'm going to pause here for a moment, and I'm going to state for all of you out there, every one of you parents, your daughter should not have to cut on herself because you don't want to listen to her when she tells you someone is harming her. When your daughter is trying to tell you something important and you never have the time to listen, and her dad is repeatedly raping her, or her brother is repeatedly raping her, or her uncle or her grandfather is repeatedly raping her, and she comes to you for help, it's the fact that you're not listening that results in her cutting on herself. You not listening. You want to talk about harm reduction? How about shut up and listen? That's harm reduction. Listen to the victim. Believe them. Take notes and turn it in with them. Simple.
As well as, criminals within the police department and the sheriff's department. And here I am in a facility where they're doing exactly the same things that a farm husband does when he beats his wife. You take away her shoes, you take away her keys, you take away her telephone so she can't go anywhere, and then you go slander her name because she can't defend herself. So what I'm having to deal with as far as the improper use of restraints is that they didn't have to restrain me. What they needed to do is listen instead of neglecting their victims. They needed to get somebody there to take the abuse seriously instead of exploiting me and forcing me to harm myself to get hurt. Autistic people primarily are literally forced to hurt themselves to get hurt. And it's not a tactic where we're just trying to get attention for attention's sake, or we're doing it because somebody won't touch our naughty parts. No, we are forced to do that because we're not hurt otherwise.
It's a last-ditch effort before suicide.
But then after we're forced to do those things, and that's used as an excuse to ignore us, oh, he's mentally ill, he's just out trying to hurt himself, obviously nobody's doing anything to him. And that's the reaction that I keep getting. Now, it doesn't matter that John Holland and Mary Lindsay are gone, or that Tammy Waddell is gone, or that Catherine Cias are gone. The fact is that the things that they said and are put in my papers are still in my papers. They are still just as much of a lie as that they were put in there, and I am still being harmed as a repercussion of them not doing their jobs, as well as a repercussion of their coworkers sending me around in circles instead of taking it seriously. I can't defend myself. I'm physically disabled as well.
Okay, so based on these records, who is harming you based on your records right now? Public or other professionals?
Both.
Matter of fact, Claire was on the phone earlier when we were trying to call people that are supposed to be mandatory reporters because they're mental health workers, but they state that they're not. They said that they're not mandatory reporters. A lot of the stuff is
mental health workers are.
Yep. A lot of
I'm not sure if you noticed that. She just said all mental health workers are. And how many mental health workers are recorded on my channel? This isn't to mention all of the ones that are recorded in videos where, I'm having to tell phone numbers, social security numbers, and stuff like that. Those don't get to get put on YouTube. You don't get that information. I'm not going to let you commit identity fraud. So a lot of the videos aren't posted on the internet. But the ones that are, verify I'm telling the truth.
keep trying to say, well, what's going on right now? It has to have happened just now, and that's also not the reality. This is ongoing abuse, which means that the history of abuse does matter as well. And that includes the history of neglect, because that history of neglect is what caused the physical abuse and also resulted in people who are professionals literally lying in court to try to hide the fact that they screwed up. I'm still being harmed over this. That includes financially. That includes me having to go back to the services that didn't help me to begin with for them to do the same things I did before. I've filled out the paperwork since I got out of jail like 6 months ago. I've filled out the paperwork for housing over there at CARE 4 times. Now, I'm supposed to be trying to...
And you feel like you're being... Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm being victimized and taken advantage of. I can't protect myself, and they know it. The services that I am allowed, I'm being denied because I don't have a friend or family member going in with me to make sure that those things are done. I don't have the ability to transport myself to those people. I got my disability and got housing and had a vehicle all at the same time while I was in Chapel, Nebraska in 2017. And I also had somebody named Tamara who worked through Region 1 that was trying to help me to get all this started. She's the one who originally initiated it. Getting the disability so that the people who are threatening to harm me, the police would have to do something about. But the thing is that the people who are harming me also include the police, and it also includes people at TFCC and the paperwork that you guys have. That, let's say the police decide to retaliate against me for trying to turn them in again, and they decide to arrest me today on bogus charges. They're going to take these pieces of paper that I have, they're full of lies, and they're going to use those to deny me my rights in court again. Now, I can state that very loudly and clearly because they've done this repeatedly. This is not the first time they did this. When I had to call 911 about being assaulted, I was arrested for improper use of 911. But the thing is that those calls weren't just about the assaults, they were also about the improper response by police. I'm a disabled person. These are mandatory reporters. That means it's required by law, not optional. And so they keep trying to make any excuse or twist any, little thing out that they can try to manipulate into it's not their job. And this is obviously, I had to take this abuse in other states before I came here. That mental health crap that they tried to do here, they did that in other states too. They did that in Colorado because before Natalie was killed, I was trying to turn in the abuse as a disabled person, and they were ignoring the abuse because I was a disabled person who was alone. I was sent to another state. I was told if I go from Nebraska to Colorado on the Front Range that they'd help me there. I was told on the Front Range that I needed to go to a bunch of other places. I went to Jeff Ritter with Colorado Coalition of the Homeless. I had to talk to Kara Heller from Colorado Coalition of the Homeless. There was also Nicole Peralta from Corona Counseling in Nebraska. And then there was also Penny Cooper and Marcia Estrada, and I've got recordings with all these different people. I went to the mental health people that I was sent to by police who didn't want to do their jobs. They said that the mental health people are supposed to help disabled people who are being abused. But then when it's compartmentalized, we can only investigate just this little part of just these 3 people who are involved, but we have to ignore all of their friends who are involved because they don't work here. And that's a really screwed up thing because that puts me at risk of... Go ahead.
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I definitely believe that the mandatory abuse laws and reporting is the scope of it is very small for certain populations of people. Children are not one of them, in my opinion. Anything's reported for children and people with developmental disability and the elderly. But then there's that bracket, there's a pocket of people.
Well, I have autism.
You might fall into.
I have autism. That is considered a developmental disability.
Are you receiving or have you been found eligible for those types for services for that in Oregon?
I was found eligible for those services in Colorado, but I haven't had any help in Oregon. I've been sent around in circles. I don't get to be found eligible when the mental health services I'm going to are too busy pretending that I'm schizophrenic and delusional to listen to a word I'm saying. All these different services that I sent me to other services, and all of them because I didn't have somebody to help me to do this. Claire's on the phone now, which does make a big difference. A lot of the people we've called have been so much nicer to us than they were to me when I had to call by myself, but she can verify that even today the places that we were calling that are mandatory reporters weren't doing their jobs. They were wanting to pawn it off on somebody else. We've got, I want to say, 8 or 9 phone numbers today already that we were given by other people. And then there's the phone numbers that we called yesterday and the day before. I mean, this is exploitation of a vulnerable adult. That's exactly what it is. Now, just because I'm not retarded, which I'm following the Title 42 USC definition of that, I'm not using it as an insult. But I'm not retarded. But that doesn't mean that I'm not still disabled. Kind of like the PTSD thing. I'm shut down and incapable of doing these things for myself, and I have been found incapable of doing these things for myself in other states, but I had to flee those states exactly the same as I'm having to do with this situation here, except now I don't have a vehicle, and I can't flee these predators. I'm stuck here.
Okay, so let me...
We need to get something done about all of these papers that I have sitting in front of me that have absolute lies in them. And I'd like to sit down in person and meet with someone in person with those to review them with me.
And those are the Those are the TFCC records, correct?
Yes, ma'am, in
That
specific.
you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Also, there was a lady that we were able to speak with yesterday. One of the things that I was told is because I tried to turn in the grievances and nobody wanted to follow the grievance information either. This lady's name is... Shit, let me see if I can find the card. Claire, can you remember? I know I shouldn't even ask that. We've had to remember 1,000 names.
Was it somebody here?
Yes, ma'am. So this is a lady who is apparently uninvolved and doesn't know me. That's part of the reason for calling her, is because I'm supposed to be able to go through somebody who's not previously involved. Her name is Maria Bateman.
Okay.
And she does work for Tillamook Family Counseling Center.
And so who referred you to her and why? I missed that part. You said it. I apologize.
I was referred to somebody who wasn't involved by the instructions on the grievance paper that I was given. And
okay.
I chose her in specific because I literally was walking down the street and there was a card from Tillamook Family Counseling Center. I noticed her name on it and realized that I didn't recognize the name, so she might be an okay person to call, especially since the other people...
And she was super nice. I want to state that. I did call the lady. She was super nice. She also very much took the situation more seriously than literally anybody, including this situation, including with Kylee. But then again, Kylee does have something to hide. Either she's lying about the situation with the quote-unquote threats, or John Holland lied about that. One of the two lied, and it did affect me and does still affect me. This will continue to affect my future, not just here. When you want to bully me into moving somewhere else, if I move to Lincoln City, for example, this stuff at TFCC is part of my quote-unquote mental health record, and it'll be sent to there. If I get fucked with by the police there, they're going to look at my arrest record and see that I was arrested for felony assault against a police officer. Even though I was the one that was assaulted, they don't care about that. None of those details are put into it. So I'll have to deal with that, and I'll have to deal with the quote-unquote mental health stuff from Tillamook Family Counseling. And I'll have to deal with having none of the resources that it took me a long time to establish here in Tillamook. By the time I get those things established, I am more likely to be assaulted by somebody who recognized me from a true crime channel than I am to get help before that happens.
Obviously, it was not a functional thing and wasn't panning out. But like I said...
So she's a clinical person.
She's a what?
Is that... I mean, she's part of the clinical team. Like, she's a clinician.
She's also smart.
Is that...
She also pays attention.
Okay, so you already talked about that?
Detail-oriented. I have. I gave her the full list of the people who were involved in this situation from TFCC, and you have my permission to talk to her about it. And the thing is that I did put you down on the list of people not to talk to on that in specific because of the accusations in court. Like, some of these actually state that they were for the court, that TFCC was there. They were claiming that I threatened to kill you. There's a very big difference between somebody telling you that I said something that you might interpret as a threat, but you haven't actually seen, and somebody saying, I'm going to dismember your niece and send you pictures of my cock and her gutted chest. And Claire, am I wrong, or is that exactly what the message says?
No, that's exactly what it said, and it's graphic, and it's hard to hear, but that's what it says.
There's also hundreds of them.
And another issue is when people say that they're going to help me and then they read that shit. Like, you have no idea how fucked up it is that I'm not allowed to have a fucking panic attack or any sort of emotional reaction to this. But people who don't know my niece and don't know my sister have read that shit and fucking started crying and fucking muttering uncontrollably. It's fucking stupid.
and a lot of these people have contacted
Those
me
are
in real
messages
life.
for people.
They're
online?
messages from, some of them are online, some of them are here in real life. Like I said, there's evidence that they've been coordinating online, both the people who have been abusing me and harassing me long-term on the internet over Natalie's death, as well as locals who have taken part in physically assaulting me and also lying to police officers and lying to the courts. One of those guys' name is Scott Brown, and he's been threatening to, he's been throwing rocks at me and accusing me of killing a little girl in Colorado. This is what these predators are harming me over, is specifically Natalie Bollinger. The guy who killed her is in prison.
Okay.
But then the police want to pretend that that's a schizophrenic delusion and send me to TFCC and tell me that TFCC is supposed to investigate this because I'm disabled. TFCC, well, obviously I'm not disabled enough for them to care.
Are you chasing your tail?
But I'm too disabled for the police to care. And then the police later on say that it's my fault for not turning.
She calls it chasing my tail. Me and Claire and about a dozen other people that are having to deal with the same stuff from TFCC and all of these other agencies, we call it running around in circles. But when I told Mary Lindsay and John Holland that I'm just being run around in circles, they pretended that that was a delusion. They pretended everything that I said was some sort of delusion.
It in right away. Well, I did turn it in right away, but I had to turn it in alone, and instead of investigating it, they sent me to you guys. So where I'm being blamed for doing what I'm told and going to the people that I'm told to and sending them the evidence of the threats and the harassment. Like I literally, the messages that I sent to you, you know, on my YouTube channel, I even speak up about, hey, obviously this threat right here that I sent to Kylee, the TFCC investigator, who's pretending that I threatened to kill her, it says right here, it says my name. Obviously my name is not Kylee. Obviously the message that I'm showing her is a screenshot that shows that somebody is threatening Sean, not Kylee. Like, this is the thing that pisses me off horribly, is that having to go public puts me at further risk, but also not going public puts my friends and family at risk. And Claire can verify situations on that too. Like, if one of my predators decides that they're going on a drug bender for a few days and, you know, go on a car chase across multiple states, well, I get my life threatened. And by the way, that actually happens.
Tirade and suddenly his life is at risk.
Yeah, like, when they go missing, when Natalie's sister goes missing, I have to deal with a bunch of internet nut jobs who want to pretend that I would go rape and fucking murder people and pretend that I went and fucking picked up that junkie and did something bad to her. In reality, every time...
So anytime anything happens in her family, they're harassing you.
Not just me. I've got messages from my sister and multiple other people saying that these people have literally threatened my sister and my niece in person the day that we tried to turn them in. Telling her that her and Destiny are going to get hurt or even killed if they don't walk away. My sister sent me those messages.
Okay.
So it's not something where I'm just manufacturing this stuff. Claire's gotten to see those messages as well. That's also included in the stuff that I sent to the number that I was told was for the TFCC investigator. I followed instructions by sending that evidence to the number that I was given. The other thing is, with never getting a call back, obviously that is something that should have been done, and obviously John Holland and Mary Lindsay had very specific reasons, and so did your other coworkers, for you not wanting to call back beyond me being angry. John Holland was already aware that I was angry and why. The same thing with Mary Lindsay. Same thing with a great many other people.
Well, I will admit, when you called me and I had about 16 messages over the span after business hours calling me very colorful words, I was not quick to call you back. No, I was not.
Well, that was after almost a week of me trying to contact you.
It wasn't a not quick to call me back. She never called me back. And the reason for those very, very angry messages is because she wasn't. I was told to contact her, and I did, and I had to send those like a week later. She still hadn't gotten back to me. So it might have been 2 weeks later. Like, this is a situation that was ongoing and is still ongoing. Now, did she talk at all about any of the calls that I made where I was speaking calmly and collectively? Like this right here, you can see through the entire call, I am calm and collective and doing my best, but you can also tell that she's having to be sly on the side instead of being directly antagonizational.
And sending those messages and being told what it is that I'm supposed to do, and I was literally being ignored at that point. That's how it's going to come across if you don't get a hold of somebody. It's not my fault that they gave me a number that evidence wasn't going to go through to. The other thing
is... I wonder why they gave you that, because that's just a desk landline, so all of that being sent was just kind of...
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that those aren't my mistakes. None of those are my mistakes.
Oh, I know.
Now, the videos of me being angry, I was angry for a reason. The reason was because these people weren't being investigated. John Holland was basically getting to decide what information goes to you and what doesn't. He was getting to decide what information goes to the courts and what doesn't. That's not legal. That's retaliation for me trying to turn him in, very blatantly.
Okay.
And so instead of assuming that those are things where I'm trying to be harmful, I literally had to give you examples of what I was going through. And that's literally what those calls are for. And I am sure that in most of those calls, I do explain that this is literally an example of what I have to go through. And I am absolutely certain, even if I didn't say it in all of them, I'm absolutely certain that I did say those things. I was also very angry because you weren't getting back a hold of me. I'm sure that I said those things. And I was also very angry about the situation with John Holland and all of that. And I am absolutely certain I said that. Sure, they were angry, but I'd already made the calls nicely and calmly and collectively for over 2 years by that point.
So when you filed a complaint...
So obviously the stuff that I'm repeatedly pausing this stuff to tell you, this isn't stuff that I'm hiding from these people. It's obvious I'm saying it to them too. I'm saying this to Kylee directly.
You said you filed a complaint with Tillamook Family Counseling and you got a response, and that's where Maria Bateman came in? Bateman or somebody not involved came in?
I didn't get a response. I didn't get a response. I'm still waiting on the response. Luke told me that, I think that's what his name is. It's on this one of these other cards here. Luke told me that you guys were going to call me with an investigator. That's the same thing that they said when I was first sent to you to turn in abuse. That I was supposed to get a call from an investigator. The problem is I didn't ever get that call from you. And of course, my frustration at being abused during that period of time, I'm not allowed to show any kind of frustration, or I'm a horrible person out to kill people. And that's just not reality.
I haven't heard from you. I mean, other than today, I have not heard one thing from you in almost 2 years, I feel like. So this is not any time recently.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it absolutely was. That card with Luke is from just a couple of months ago. Matter of fact, I even have a letter here from Luke, or from the people at TFCC about that. An actual letter, like that was recently. Her saying that it must have been years ago because she didn't know anything about it. Well, they're not telling her anything about it, are they? They're pretending that they're going to and not following through. Right there, either A, she's lying, or B, these people didn't keep their word. These people who said that they were going to turn it into their investigator didn't. Now, through this, she's doing the plausible deniability thing through all of it. Oh, none of these people told me. Oh, none of these people informed me. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know. Oh, you haven't called me. This must have been a long time ago. No, it's frequent and ongoing. I still am trying to turn in this shit.
I haven't heard anything.
For the last 2 years, I've been trying to turn you and your coworkers in because of that. You know, there's information that you
Gotcha.
shared with me that is useful as far as that goes, and it's nice to know those things now. But it would have also been nice if I'd have been informed those things years ago. It would have been nice if John Holland and Mary Lindsay weren't busy trying to protect themselves and their coworkers from the crimes that they committed. You know, you should have been the one who was in court saying those things instead of them bringing hearsay into the courtroom and stating it very loud and proud as if it must be the truth. I had to listen to Tammy and Rebecca and a lot of other people at TFCC stating, I know for a fact that you threatened one of our workers, and absolutely not. The only thing I'm ever going to threaten you guys with is taking you to court, which is what I'm still trying to do. Now, in this situation, from what you have to say about it, it seems to me that as long as you're telling the truth, you're as much of a victim in this as I am. Not victimized as much, but the very same people.
Well, it just sounds like some sort of miscommunication might have possibly happened. I'm not 100%
A
sure.
miscommunication.
To be honest with you, I don't even remember.
Between you and I, we can call it miscommunication, but between John Holland and Mary Lindsay, it's absolutely not. They also intentionally lied at the hospital and also went out of their way to prevent me from having any of the rights that I'm supposed to have under a civil hold. That's right, they put me under a civil hold by intentionally lying. So then when I was on the civil hold, John Holland wanted to say that it's not okay for me to be allowed to have access to my phone because it only feeds into my delusions. And the reality is that those phones were full of evidence. I was in a hospital. Yes, I am allowed to have those things, and I am allowed to show them to show them to people, especially mandatory reporters. I am allowed to show them the actual recordings of physical assaults against me. But because John Holland and Mary Lindsay wanted to basically try to twist any words that I said into it being a schizophrenic delusion and refusing to allow me evidence. One day, Mary Lindsay, when she was visiting me in the hospital during my illegal hold, she was yelling at me in the hospital. Like, I was telling her about the situation, and she was wanting to tell me, well, I want you to say that everybody's out to get you. You think everybody's out to get you. I want you to say that so that I can write it down. And I said, well, I'm not going to tell you what you want me to tell you. What I'm going to do is get my evidence and show it to you. Because if I show you the evidence, you can't pretend that it's a schizophrenic delusion. And she got such a shitty attitude with me over that. Her and John Holland were telling the people in the hospital that I stalked the 13-year-old niece of somebody here in town. I had to deal with Carla at the hospital bullying me, her and Jessica, when they were on shift. They were not following the laws that they're supposed to when it comes to a civil hold. And also, I have the right to record audio in a hospital. Anybody does. You don't have to be disabled to do that. You don't have the right to walk into a hospital and point your phone in everybody's faces and stand next to them while they're reading off their social security number. But you do have the right to record in a hospital, and they committed a lot of crimes against me in the hospital because John Holland wouldn't allow me to have my phone. Hospital workers at Tillamook Adventist Hospital committed crimes against me. Yeah, they committed crimes against me because John Holland and Mary Lindsay lied to them. And there's also a deputy here in town, Deputy Mike Reeves. I had to try to turn him in for assaulting a 13-year-old girl and then coordinating with people at TFCC to have that girl put on a mental health hold like she was trying to kill herself. Now, that little 13-year-old girl very specifically stated that she was trying to turn in people who were harming her at home. There was no reason for Deputy Mike Reeves to get out of the vehicle, charge her down, and slam her off the side of his vehicle with a running start. He didn't say a word to her. He just grabbed her and fucking assaulted her. Now, then there's also multiple people at the hospital that were all right. And one of those is a girl named Carissa. And when the hospital staff tried to repeatedly antagonize the situation and bully me or outright neglect me and force me into a situation of social isolation.
I'm going to pause here. There's something that you might not have noticed or you might have not remembered this long through the video. Claire is still listening. And unlike the situations where I'm trying to tell her about the abuse, where she interrupts me all the fucking time, almost making it impossible to get anything done. When we finally get to the phone call here, she's super quiet and she is listening. She's not interrupting all the time.
She's the one that showed up to de-escalate the situation that they had intentionally escalated. And I know that I'm speaking with a lot of emphasis. Do what?
I said I'm glad to hear that you had somebody that was helpful to you.
Well, she was only slightly helpful because when it came to investigating, again, nobody investigated. When I had to try to turn in John Holland and several other of the workers there at TFCC prior to being arrested, like, you're the one that I was told to go to. But the thing is that I wasn't getting a hold of you. I was getting, the runaround from the people at the front office if they don't know who I need to get a hold of. I think in 2022, they were telling me that some guy named like Dan or David or something was supposed to come talk to me, but he never did. He was supposed to call me. He never did.
David is my supervisor.
David, was he here in 2022?
If it was
Now, I do want to stop here. One of the things that me and Claire were talking about is the number of people with the same name. David is a common name. So is Mary. So when I say Mary, that it is so easy for somebody to get confused when I say Mary, because there's Mary Palominos, which is actually, her name is Esmeralda. So that's Mary Palominos. Then there's my Aunt Mary, Mary Schwartz, and she was involved in the situation too. The Natalie situation, not this specific situation in Tillamook. There's, of course, Mary Lindsay, which we're aware of. And then there's, I want to say, like 2 or 3 other Marys just here in Tillamook that are involved in it. So there's a lot of Marys. And then some of these people, their name isn't actually Mary, but that's what they get called. So then people are like, oh, you mean Mary Lindsay? And it turns out the lady's name is like Mariah or something like that. Well, I only know that she's called Mary. I don't know what her real name is. Kind of like Mary Palominos, for example. There were people in the jail that went to school, to high school with Mary Palominos. So they all called her Mary. I didn't know her name was Esmeralda until I looked it up on the Tillamook County Sheriff's Department jail list, who works there. And, of course, I posted a screenshot of that up on this channel as well.
David, that's my supervisor here, and he's also the co-worker.
So it might not be the same David, and it also might be. Just because it's a common name, I do have to say that, because, even when she's saying that, I'm thinking to myself, well, it might be the same David, it might not.
Manager for the Developmental Disabilities Program.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe that was why they were thinking that you might need to chat with him. I thought you did come in and chat with him. When we were over on 3rd Street? By the bus barn?
So, are you talking about the
We're going to talk about a situation here that I did go to at their place on 3rd Street. So I went in twice to that place. One of them with Kara Scudder, and there was nobody home. And I went once with Candace from Safeway, and that's the situation we're going to talk about here. But I don't know if the guy's name was David or not. I don't know the name of the dude. It's probably in the videos, but they let me know outright they weren't interested in hearing any of the stuff. Basically, the list that they gave me of things that they're not allowed to do is literally all the things that an adult protective services person is supposed to do. That includes the mandatory reporting stuff. That includes, them saying all of the things that they're not supposed to say as mandatory reporters, like, it's not our job to investigate. Well, send me to the investigator. Apparently that's been Kylee the whole time, and she'll also state in this video that she is the only investigator. Now, there's a lot of these important details that I've been able to pause and tell you, but also with her interrupting at a lot of parts, she's missing those important details, and I don't get to finish those important details.
The one right next to, over by ODHS, on the road out to ODHS, pretty far out there.
It's on the same road, but
Yeah.
we're right next. We used to be right next door to the bus barn, the red
Yeah.
bus barn.
So myself and a woman named Candace were sent there to meet with an investigator, but that was supposed to do something, and we were going to sit down and talk to the investigator before having to go into the building, and she was also going to review the evidence before going in with me so that we didn't end up getting talked over. What ended up happening is she wasn't prepared because she hadn't taken the time to look at any of the materials or hear my story or review the evidence. She was basically going in blind, which Claire isn't doing right now. She's actually gotten to see a lot of the evidence. Some of it is blind just because there's so much to send and how much time it takes. But when I went in there to turn that stuff in, Candace, the whole thing is, even though it was a bad idea to go in because she wasn't informed, she'd already set up the appointment. Her and her mom had already set up the appointment. They'd already decided that they were going to do that. And this is the thing about trying to get help, is that people give inappropriate help. You know, it was not okay for her to set up that appointment before she knew what was going on. Yes, her mom told her what the protocols were, but those protocols had already been broken by that point. And when she set up that appointment, it was with the intention of her becoming informed before going in with me. The day that we were actually supposed to go in, she got a hold of me right before we're supposed to go in, and she tells me that she hasn't gotten to look at any of that stuff, but that because this guy came all the way from somewhere else, that she was going to go ahead and, you know, she didn't want to be rude. She actually wanted to go at least meet with him because he'd spent all the time to actually come out there. But she had no idea what was going on. She didn't know any of the things that she's supposed to know or any of the stuff to speak up about. And when we went in there, we immediately got the list of red flags. Well, it's not our job to investigate. We're not investigators. And then the proceeding crap that comes after that basically you listen to them explain that they literally can't do anything for anybody. Their job is literally not to investigate anything no matter what. And that's what their list amounts to. Not a rough exaggeration at all. That's what it comes down to, is the list of things they said they couldn't do before I even got to open my mouth made it obvious I wasn't going to be able to turn this stuff in. And the fact that Candace was not informed before we went in made it so that I was completely naked in that situation. All I could do to make sure that I was safe in that situation was to leave it. So I left the building. When I left the building, Candace...
Are you talking about DHS? Or are you talking about the Developmental Disabilities Program like I was?
I'm talking about Tillamook Family Counseling Center, the only time out on 3rd that I actually went out there to 3rd. I went out there with Candace to specifically meet with a mandatory reporter who was supposed to do something about the abuse by TFCC staff as well as the abuse against me as a disabled person.
However, I am going to interrupt. I don't recall that.
One moment. What was that, Claire?
They were both talking at once.
DHS has done the same thing.
Yes. All of the agencies here have done the same thing, basically. They just send me to the other ones. They say that it's not their job, it's always somebody else's job, and that's why this abuse keeps happening. Mandatory reporters don't want to be held responsible for any of the assaults that I've had to endure since the first time I tried to turn it in. And that's the reason they keep trying to pretend that I'm schizophrenic or delusional. The paperwork that I have, and Claire has gotten to see some of this paperwork, and there's a lot more of it, it states very clearly that I'm not schizophrenic or delusional, that this abuse is happening.
Okay, so that is what you're hoping for? You're hoping for having that basically redacted from your permanent record?
Not basically. It needs to be done properly. It needs to be done through the courts. This prevents me from turning in any of the crimes that are committed against me. It has prevented me from turning in any of the crimes committed against me repeatedly. It doesn't need to be redacted. Now, I do have to admit that, yes, that's sort of what I'm after, but we can't have it be a situation where she's going to use that fact as an excuse to destroy evidence. That is still evidence of the abuse by Tillamook Family Counseling Center, their employees, and proof of the coordination between them and the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department and CARE Incorporated. These people worked together. They showed up together on more than one occasion while I was in the jail.
Not just that.
Is that what your
Not just that.
hope would be?
It needs to be acknowledged.
He needs to have
So here I need to be able to say what I need, and this is the part where Claire's going to interrupt and she's going to give some wrong information. Not intentionally. This is a part where this is actually a part where she needs to let me speak, but she's trying. And I do want that to be noticed as well.
schizophrenia redacted because he has psychological.
Their paperwork doesn't say that I'm schizophrenic. And she's talking about redacting. No, we don't need to redact it. All right, we need to be completely transparent. That means not destroying the evidence. That means not getting rid of it. That evidence, redacting it, destroys evidence of the fact that that was a wrong thing that was abusive towards me and has already affected my ability to turn in abuse. Has already been used to prevent me from turning in multiple assaults. They're using it as an excuse to prevent the victim from being able to turn it in. Cops won't do it because I'm mentally ill. The mentally ill place won't do it because I'm not mentally ill. Well, make up your goddamn mind.
Diagnosis that says that he is autistic and has PTSD, not schizophrenia.
And they very specifically state that I don't have schizophrenia. It's not that they just let have schizophrenia. They state that I'm not schizophrenic.
Okay, and what kind of paperwork do you have that, like assessments and stuff from a...
Now, I already told her at the very beginning of this that there were 7 psychological evaluations that I took. 7 of them from forensics evaluators at the very beginning of this.
From a qualified person that you have autism.
From Dr. James Pekanu from the State Evaluation Service at the Oregon State Hospital. There's also Morgan Beckman, the supervisor of the forensics evaluation team at the Oregon State Hospital. There is also the evaluation.
So that was recent.
Yes, there is also the evaluation by.
And of course, I mean, these are psychologists and psychiatrists at the state hospital. These are the dudes whose word is law everywhere. All right. When the law says, hey, tell us about this guy, these are the dudes that they ask. These guys definitely have more than just a certified social worker's associate degree, which is what John Holland has. Certified social worker's associate. That means he's not even a social worker. He's an associate of a social worker. Now, between John Holland, the associate of social work, and the head of the state forensics team, that's right, the head of the state forensics team stepped in to put his name on that paperwork. Yeah, that's pretty notable.
Forensics evaluator Leslie Carter, who is also an autism specialist, and then there is also the one, and she's also here in Oregon, by the way. There's also one from. Sorry, I could list them all off. There's a lot more, but go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I just needed to know. No, I was just curious. So, is that these are PhD psychologists?
They are qualified. They have the numbers or letters behind their name. They are qualified to diagnose. John Holland and Mary Lindsay are not. It wasn't okay for them to make
well, they can't diagnose you with autism. You're correct on that.
They also can't diagnose. They also can't diagnose me with delusional disorder.
I think John can diagnose people. I'm not saying that is diagnosed correctly, but he is able to diagnose people. I don't know about Mary Lynn or Mary Lindsay because I'm not sure who she is. But
he's got a clinical social worker's associate degree, or he's a clinical social worker associate. The thing is that he was trying, like I said, they were all trying to rubber stamp me for something that any idiot could have looked up on the internet in 5 minutes and realized is true. Like Natalie Hollinger's situation is not little. Go ahead.
So the redaction of the schizophrenia is what you would hope for, right?
No, not
redaction
just that.
Of schizophrenia.
It has to be acknowledged that this abuse by those workers actually happened, and also the repercussions that I am still having to deal with.
Yeah, redacting it obviously isn't going to do anything about the abuse or the future that I don't have because of that abuse. What they put in my papers, what they did in court, what they did to my vehicle, the stuff that they coordinated to make sure happened. Now, you get to hear Kylee and all of this stuff where she should be held responsible. It's stuff where she's always, it's somebody else who did it, or they didn't let me know that, or I wasn't aware, or it must have been years ago because I didn't know. No, you're making excuses and making assumptions, and they just don't work. They don't fit the situation, they don't fit the scenario, they don't fit the evidence.
All of my resources have been taken because of this.
I'm going to interfere. So a redaction of the false diagnosis by someone who is not qualified of schizophrenia.
But, and Claire's going back to that part. Yes, we've already established that, but the thing is that it needs to be done appropriately. There's the appropriate way where the evidence of their crimes is turned in the way that it needs to be. And then there's the part where you destroy the evidence of your wrongdoing. Yes, it needs to be redacted, but it needs to be done the correct legal way. The way that shows the abuse instead of destroying the evidence of it. And redacting that stuff. The other thing here is that Claire is stuck on the schizophrenic thing, and the people at CARE did not call me schizophrenic. They called me delusional. So when she's talking about the redaction of the delusion thing, well, that's in other stuff. Or the schizophrenia thing, that was other stuff. That was other situations where people, like, for example, Scott DaCosta told everybody that he could get to listen to him in Chapel, Nebraska, told them that I was schizophrenic. Then he told the state evaluator that I was schizophrenic, and told the jails and prisons that he had me sent to show that he could do whatever he wanted. And he was doing this to punish me for turning him in. But through all of that, he told all these people that I was schizophrenic. A friend or family member should have been there through all of that, instead of allowing my predator, Scott DaCosta, to make all of my legal decisions for me. This is not okay. It's also not okay that this is what TFCC and the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department have done.
That is not a diagnosis that any one person can just walk up on the street and say that this is what I think they have and then call it good. That's not what's going to happen.
Also, them pretending that...
We also need to understand that what he needs help with is that there is frequent and ongoing abuse for these misdiagnoses and for the crimes that he did not commit which there is evidence for. So
See,
he
she's on
needs
point.
assistance on those things. So a redaction, and then an understanding that he is not a criminal and he is a good person.
The other thing is that the redactions that need to be made in these papers, I want to go through each individual one because they do show individual crimes committed by the people at TFCC. It also shows that they were aware of the situation that they continued to pretend was delusional. These are things that continue to harm me. It's not just the redaction.
I'm gonna warn you. Smoking pipe tobacco out of a pipe is disgusting. I don't want to roll a cigarette because it's super loud and prevents you all from hearing it, so I'm trying to smoke out of a tobacco pipe. When I tried to smoke off of it earlier, I got a big nasty glob of liquid nicotine that was just gross, so I tried to cook it off so that it doesn't do that, and then God, it's just so fucking dry. Fucking Christ.
Also, the fact that these people do need to be held accountable. They broke the law. They made sure and guaranteed that I was forced into a situation where I will be abused and cannot defend myself. They were made aware of my disabilities. I went in multiple times with my disability paperwork to show them prior to this, and they refused to look at it. They said, "Oh no, we don't need to look at that. We believe you." Well, if they believe me, then they're right there. That is just cause for them to turn in the abuse. If I'm telling them about abuse and they say that they don't have to see the videos because they believe me, then they need to turn it in right away. Turn it in immediately and make a written report within 24 hours. That's what the law specifically says. Now, when it comes to children, the disabled, or the elderly, it doesn't matter if it's a physical or a mental disability, it is still a disability. Those are situations that mandatory reporters have to do something about. It's not just children. But mandatory reporters pretend to be optional reporters when it comes to adults being abused. Then they keep going back and forth between, they want to say that I'm mentally ill so that they can deny me my rights to speak up or show evidence. And then they pretend that I'm fine and dandy so that they can hold me responsible. And that's also illegal.
Okay, well, I will say that you are correct about mandatory abuse reporting. However, after they report something, whether they do or they don't, but let's hypothetically say that they have reported, and I know that you're saying they haven't, but in situations when a mandatory reporter reports, it stops there for them. They're no longer involved. They've done their report and they're done. Then the person, me, screens that abuse report.
Her. That's right. Her. Kylee, in specific. All these places that I went to and have been sent around to since 2022. And Kylee is the person who's supposed to do something about this. In specific, Kylee. Kylee. It is Kylie's job. It is very specifically her job. These mandatory reporters need to turn it into Kylee, and Kylee hasn't heard anything about me for over 2 years. So, who are they turning it into? Who the fuck are they turning it into?
And then it goes from there.
So you screen the words but not the evidence, and I have difficulties with communication, which is exploited greatly to make it so that we never get far enough for anybody to look at evidence. But go ahead.
Before, a couple years ago, this was back 2 years ago when you and I very first spoke. It might have even been 3 years ago at this point. It was when...
See how far going back it is? And what did she say? She said that she knew, she believed me, and she knew that the Natalie Bollinger situation was true. And here she's saying it might have even been 3 years ago. Yeah. No shit. So if she was aware that the Natalie Bollinger situation was not a delusion 3 years ago, but all of her coworkers continued to pretend that it was a delusion, and when mandatory reporters report, she's the person in Tillamook that it goes to, then obviously these mandatory reporters at all of these different places that I called, obviously they didn't report. Obviously, it never made it to Kylee. 2 years worth of calling mandatory reporters. The person they're supposed to turn it into is Kylee, and even the people that she works with still haven't turned it in. Still have not turned it in to Kylee. Not okay.
It might have been 3 years now. When you and I first spoke, this was before, honestly, this was before all of John Holland and all these people's involvement in you. This was before.
And if it's all the way back that long ago, and there was 2 phone calls, why aren't they in this stack of papers? Why is that information left out of what was sent to my attorneys and sent to the state forensic evaluators? They didn't put specifics in there, but if they had put more specifics in there, those state evaluators would have had a fucking heyday roasting these motherfuckers. And they already had a heyday roasting these people in my forensics evaluations. It seemed to me that Dr. James Pekanu actually had quite a bit of fun mentioning over and over and over again how wrong the people at TFCC were. But of course, the TFCC people, you also notice that even though folks' names were at the top of it, it doesn't say specifically what was stated or who it was stated to. It leaves their names out of it. When they sent this stuff to the state evaluators and you read the state evaluations, they don't put the names of the employees at TFCC who did these things. They just stated that this is what the people at TFCC had said. Now, thank goodness, I remember who it is that was involved in these situations.
Before you went to jail, this is, I think, even before the 3 people you mentioned, maybe not Molly. Molly might sound familiar, but before Andrew and Chris and all the stuff happened.
All right, you see, she said that Molly might sound familiar. That would have been 2022. All right, that would have been 2022. I believe that would have been August or September of 2022, matter of fact.
Happening to you took place. So when I did screen it back then, you know, at that point, it was people on the internet that were harassing you.
No, it wasn't. Molly wasn't harassing me on the internet. It was a combination of people on the internet and real life. It's a combination of the two. And I was trying to explain that back then as well, and she just wasn't hearing it. Now, the conversation that I had with her back then versus this one, she is being much, much nicer, much more amicable as a human being, but also she's aware that Claire is on the line and it's being recorded.
Which is
It
not
wasn't just
something
people
that I
on the internet.
investigate.
That's the thing, is that it wasn't just people on the internet, and I was trying to explain that. I was explaining that people were harming me in real life over things that were on the internet.
Things
And
that
it
other
wasn't
people
just
said.
people in real life assaulting me. They are coordinating with these people over the internet. And I've explained that several times in this call, too. So I think that I've explained it better. And also, with Claire being here, you know, it does make it a little bit easier to say those things. But it's not just internet harassment. They are literally physically assaulting me and threatening to kill me. And those threats against my life, whether they're made in real life or on the internet, are still illegal. And the fact is that those people on the internet are coordinating with people in real life here in Tillamook, including Andrew Wolness.
Well, they are illegal. You're correct. I'm not saying that they're not illegal. I don't investigate crimes like that, though.
Right, the police are supposed to, but as far as a mandatory reporter goes, turning it into a mandatory reporter is supposed to result in them turning it in right away, and since they did...
The police refused to do their jobs. They sent me to mandatory reporters because of my perceived disabilities. They told these mandatory reporters that I was schizophrenic and delusional and prepped the situation before I got there. So they can't diagnose, but the people that they told those things, well, they're mental health workers. They just believe these officers because they're officers with a position of trust.
It has to be acknowledged that they didn't. It has to be acknowledged that I tried to turn in the crimes, and there's plenty of evidence showing that. I mean, I'm treated in court like all of these things that any idiot can look up on the internet. and realize that they're true. I'm treated in court still like those are delusions. The
Just
stuff from
because of
TFCC,
TFCC.
if TFCC is going to work with me, they need to work with it appropriately and address the fact that I'm not just disabled when it benefits them. I'm not just, disabled well enough for them to have me come in for therapy so that they can make money off of me every month and ignore any of the abuse that I'm going through, because I don't need therapy. The reason that I started going to therapy all the way back in 2017 or 2016 and 2017 is specifically over the abuse by Natalie Bollinger before she was killed. I went to those therapists because I was told that they were mandatory reporters who were supposed to help disabled people turn in abuse when everybody else wants to neglect them because they're different. I am neglected because I'm different. That is a fact. There is no way around that. And autistic people are nationwide treated that way. Dr. Leslie Carter even speaks about that. She's got, as I've been told, several online speeches where she speaks about that. How people, they know that we're different. They might not be able to put a finger on why we're different, but they're less likely to listen to us because we're different.
They're
We're
also
less
more likely
trustworthy
to
because we're different.
victimize
One of those
us.
things is we don't usually make eye contact. We don't make eye contact because while we're busy looking you in the eyes, we're not able to think. We're too busy focusing on keeping eye contact. If I'm looking at the floor...
For example, when I'm thinking, I look up. And sometimes people think that I'm rolling my eyes. I'm not.
Right.
I'm thinking.
Or I look at architecture or look at the floor. Now, when I was in the Pine Ridge area, one of the things is that's a Native American reservation, and I was at the Pine Ridge Job Corps Center, and the natives in the area, you respect your elders by not looking them in the eye. You respect your elders by looking at the floor while they're speaking to you, because that is a sign that you are intently listening. But as an autistic person, if I'm not looking these people in the eyes, they treat me like I must be lying, automatically assume that I must be lying. And then when they realize how wrong they were, then they, well, like I said, when these mandatory reporters make a mistake, instead of fessing up to the mistake and moving forward, they want to pretend that I'm delusional, that I made it up.
Okay, so I'm going to take a cue, and I think Ashley gets it,
and she was actually wrong about this cue. Completely wrong. But we get a long pause because Claire had a clairvoyant moment, I guess.
she has something to say.
I'm listening.
Who gets it?
She thinks you have something to say, so go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, it threw me off. I'm not Ashley. I
Ashley
didn't know there was somebody else around me.
Pardon me.
Yeah, Ashley is the person we
That's
spoke
okay.
to
Oh,
last.
no.
Okay.
This is Kylee. So obviously,
I just,
the names, she's having difficulties because it's a new thing with her, and she's having to learn a lot of new names. But I have issues with it because there's so many names. There is no possible way that every mandatory reporter, it's not their job. Like the police refuse to do their job because I'm mentally ill. And then the mentally ill places refuse to do their job because it's the police's job. And this is exploitation of
I could
the
how frustrating
disabled.
that could possibly be.
It's not just frustrating, it is
I can only
exploitation. And a lot of people here in Tillamook are
Okay.
She wants to interrupt to say the frustrating thing a lot. And we don't need you to say it's frustrating. I'm telling you about crimes that were committed against me. People who coordinated crimes against me. These people that I'm allowed to turn in, according to her, work together with the very same people that she's saying I'm not allowed to turn in to her. Well, all of these mandatory reporters need to be turned in to her. Obviously, 2 years worth of her not hearing anything, despite all of the letters that I wrote, all of the messages that I made, all of the calls that I made. Really?
through that too. It's not just me.
So let
I have a
me-
list of about 30 different people with various
let's
stories
get-
on that. But go ahead.
Let's get Kylee
I am.
to talk.
This
Okay.
is something where Claire felt the need to interrupt and have Kylee speak, and we did give a lot of time to that, but there's the important details. I need to make sure that I at least say them, that I get as much out as possible. Kylee can have her turn to speak. She can interject when it's absolutely necessary, and I know that she will.
So, first of all, what I'm going to do is, after we hang up, maybe not tonight because it's getting late and Maria might not be here anymore, but I'm going to try to touch base with Maria and maybe the clinical director next door to talk about the concerns that you have about your complaint and your grievance and the fact that your records, you don't agree with them. Is that accurate to say?
That's just the start of it. It's not just I don't agree with them.
I know it's just the scratching the surface.
The evidence proves that that's BS. What was put in my
that's
records for
scratching
you
the
guys
surface, I know.
doesn't match the evidence. I'm willing to walk in there with my paper evidence, and with electronic devices I can show the actual evidence to an investigator. But an investigator has to show up. With what happened with you last time, that
so
needs
I'm
to
the only
not
investigator,
happen.
Sean, so I don't
I want to point that out. She's the only investigator. Since 2022, I've been trying to get this stuff turned in, trying to get an investigator to do their job. Listen to mandatory reporters claim that they were turning it in, and obviously not. Obviously not.
I don't understand I'm the only one. So, do you have time next week to come in and meet with me?
Ma'am, I'll make time whenever
And I
you
say
ask
next
me
week because I'm off the next couple of days, not because I don't have time, but I'm going to be out of the office.
Me and Claire are both used to that as well.
Yeah, you might notice through the conversations, at least, that I've been able to post up because it doesn't have personal phone numbers in it or names of minor victims or any of that kind of stuff. It's a difficult situation for me because I shouldn't have had to ever post any of this on the internet. But also, I do have to post it on the internet for my safety and the safety of others. If something happens to Ted Bollinger in Colorado, I don't want any of his nut jobs going after my little sister in Nebraska because they believe that I did something to Ted, even though I'm here in Tillamook. If my predators know where I'm at, yes, that gives them the ability to coordinate attacks, assaults, whatever they want to do against me. But at the same time, it also shows that I'm not harming any of those predators who wanted to pretend that they were victims. Like Ted Bollinger and Alicia Bollinger, who multiple times people have gotten a hold of me and my sister and my niece to threaten our lives in real life, not just over the phone, not just over the internet.
Yes, we are.
Sorry. So, do you have any time on,
Claire?
either Monday afternoon or Tuesday?
Monday or Tuesday works great for me. How about you, Sean?
Claire is an hour off from us because she's in Colorado. So just keep that in mind, but that works for me. Also, I do want to have it recognized that I do have to post a lot of stuff on the internet to show that obviously I'm nowhere near any of these people who might potentially end up dead or whatever. Deputy Taylor needs to be spoken with about that because he knows almost half a dozen of the names of people that people keep wanting to pretend that I killed. Because of Natalie, since I didn't kill Natalie, they want me to be guilty of killing someone because that if I had killed somebody, it justifies their crimes. That's people like Selena Not Afraid, Christine Buhit, Rana Ingersoll, Anna Hunka.
I don't follow why this has to do with me, though, meeting with me.
Well, it's the abuse that I'm trying to turn in. It's
What am I being abused over? Why are they abusing me? What is their motive? What are they doing to me? Well, these people who were friends of mine who ended up dead, people threaten my friends and family over this shit. I get treated like I'm a horrible person. I get my life threatened for killing not just Natalie, for killing a bunch of people I was nowhere near. And what this has to do with Kylee is that this abuse that I've had to endure for trying to turn this stuff in, for trying to get it taken seriously, that started in Colorado, follows me everywhere I go. What happened in Colorado was used as an excuse to deny my rights, not just in Colorado, but also Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, California, Virginia, Tennessee. Like, I've had to move from one end of the country to the other repeatedly since Natalie was killed, because everywhere that I go, it's the same exact thing. I have to start over with nothing. By the time I start getting something going, I've already been victimized to the point that I have to leave town by the police.
The fact that I literally can't turn in abuse. It's not going anywhere. Go ahead, Claire.
Let's do it on Monday or Tuesday, and what time do you have available? Kylee.
Are you talking to Sean or me?
You.
Me?
You.
So I've got time available. I gotta also coordinate with the group room. Hold on.
If it's Monday too early, you might not be able to talk to people. So I was just thinking about that.
You're right. How about Tuesday?
Sorry for thinking logically. I'm autistic. It's a curse.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so yeah, Tuesday would probably be better then, so it gives me a chance to touch base with.
Okay, let's do Tuesday. What time?
Morning or
Eventually
afternoon
decide
better
on
for you guys?
9:30.
Sean, what do you think?
9:30 a.m. on
I live over
Tuesday.
by the Crackhead place, over by Veltri Insurance and Safeway, so I don't have a regular sleep schedule. It's entirely dependent on how loud their vehicles are at night and how much they're fighting and screaming and beating on each other. So
let's
do you want to do later morning or?
Well, I usually sleep
Early
in the
afternoon?
afternoons due to the fact
All right, you see how confusing that got real quick with three of us talking?
that they're meth addicts, so they're up all night.
Okay.
But whatever time that you set up, I'll try to make sure that I sleep well enough that whatever time you set up, we're able to. I'd like to do it first thing in the morning, but if we do it that way, let's say if we scheduled it for 9 and then I woke up at 8:30, I'm still going to need another 30 minutes to become conscious. But like I said, most of the time I sleep at night. Schedule for whatever time that you can, just the sooner the better, and make sure that you're able to talk to people beforehand, I guess.
So Tuesday,
let's do
morning or afternoon?
We also need to address why it is that the police are sending victims to TFCC to turn in crimes as a disabled person. Like, it's obvious I'm not schizophrenic or delusional for me to be sent to you guys, for you guys to tell me I need to go to the police, for them to tell me to go to you guys. You're not doing the stuff that John
It sounded like they might have been
did.
referring you for services. I'm not sure.
The services that I needed was a mandatory reporter and to help me to process the abuse. Like, in order to...
So when they're asking about this qualification stuff, well, nobody's helping me with any of that. Nobody has been helping me with any of that. That's the stuff that they want to ignore. They just want to focus on just housing. They know I'm not going to get housing. They're not helping me get housing. All of these places have somehow lost the paperwork. At least we have the conversation with Russell that shows that, yes, I did fill out the paperwork and I did turn in the paperwork. So at least one of those people admitted that, but they lost the paperwork not once, but twice. Well, 3 times now, four times. Fuck, I've lost count of how many times they've lost the paperwork since I got out of jail. And there's the paperwork I filled out before then.
Process the evidence, I have to have a safe place to do it. I don't have a safe place, so I'm in a constant state of panic. And because of PTSD, if you know anything about that, I literally can't function. Right now, I'm able to function because Claire's on the phone with me. I'm not able to function very well.
So let's just get this scheduled.
Yes, ma'am.
So I can look at what you want to show me, okay? So this is what we'll do on Tuesday. You'll be able to show me what you want to show me. Is that okay?
Now, that's perfect. That's exactly what I need. Obviously, I won't be able to take it all in with me. It's literally not possible. Like, we just can't do it. Just because of my physical limitations and lack of a vehicle, and also lack of access to the evidence and storage. Also, I don't know if my computer will hook up to their internet, but I'll try taking it with me anyway because there's a lot. I'll also end up taking this with me, which is my 13 USB drives. I'll also explain about the evidence and electronic devices that are lost, stolen, or missing after being taken by um, Officer Timothy Sadler.
Yes, ma'am. I have thousands of pieces of paperwork, so I'm only going to bring in what I'm going to be able to carry on foot, and I'll also have to travel there on foot. I use a cane, so it takes me a little bit, and it's extremely painful to do that, but I'll bring in what I can carry.
Now, I do want to say she offers to come and meet me somewhere, but like the closest place that I could actually meet with her is their TFCC building. Like, I can't safely do this at the library, obviously, and that's about it. I mean, the place that I'm staying now, this is probably not actually an appropriate place for her to. I'd invite her into my tent. I'm fine with that. She can see my tent, and I think that's probably something that I should extend an invite to so she can see what I'm living in, what I'm trying to work with. Obviously, this is as organized as I can make it given the circumstances.
What I have here, if I can't get out to my storage.
Is it easier for me to meet you where you're living, or what's the...
I live in a tent in somebody's backyard. It would actually be easier for me to walk up to 6th and see you. No, you guys are on 9th, aren't you?
Yeah, 9th
Yeah.
and Main.
But I can make it there,
Okay,
and
so
I
why
can
don't
make
you
it back.
Why don't you bring the stuff that you've talked about the most today, which is the stuff that you're concerned about with the records?
Yes, ma'am.
I
I'll
don't
bring
need
you
to see all the stuff about the harassment because I know that's all happening. I'm not just
Yes,
but I want to see what records you have and look at those. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Also, the records that are missing, we can make a list of those because the stuff with Doug Beeler is not in there. He was a dick. I can't stand that guy. Also, the stuff with
he's not here anymore either.
Good.
So we got like what 6 or 7 of these people from TFCC that they can't be held accountable because they no longer work there, and they can't be interviewed about what in specific that I had said that they were claiming were delusions because they no longer work there. This is all convenient for them. But it's also a situation where I told you guys, I fucking told you, and we have Kylee, the TFCC investigator, verifying that I told the truth. Over and over and over again. She is verifying through this entire thing that the things I was treated like I was delusional over, she was aware of 3 years ago that they were not delusions.
All these people, none of these people work here anymore, actually. I know a couple of them do, but most don't. Okay, so 9 a.m. How's 9 a.m. on Tuesday?
9 a.m. on Tuesday works for me. How about you?
Works for me too. If you can give me a call before that, if you're able to remember, and I'll give you a call beforehand if I'm able to remember, just in case. One of us will wake up the other if something happens.
Okay, sounds good.
Are you talking to me or are you talking to your friend?
I was talking to Claire. And I'll bring in the important
let me just
details.
Make sure.
There's a lot of stuff that's in these papers, so I'm bringing you the evidence that what they said in their paperwork isn't the truth. Also understand I don't have access to a lot of evidence like what they said in court and a lot of that stuff, the body cameras from that, because first of all, I'm broke, and second of all, I don't have assistance in doing that in person, which obviously a disabled person who can't do that for themselves and doesn't have help doing that, it's not going to get done. It's not that the victim isn't trying, it's that they're being denied because of the mentally ill tag. That shouldn't be used to deny victims. Anything else?
So, let's go through this all on Tuesday. Give her a chance to...
I'm going to stop it because the last few minutes of it, it's just the same shit. It's us organizing to meet up. We finally decided on 9:30 on Tuesday. So, enough said. Obviously, like I was telling you earlier, I haven't even had a chance to listen to these, to label them what's actually in them yet. I literally went from recording it to downloading it to the computer to bringing it to you guys. And we finished up at 5 o'clock, and it is now 9:18 p.m. and I still haven't downloaded this to YouTube, which will take probably a couple of hours. So this is just one video, one recording out of 10 recordings today.